That day, the main character encountered a witch. His name is Mugura Tooru and he is invisible. But more precisely, it's not that he can become transparent or something. It's just that people practically don't notice his presence. For example, the hero once had his desk taken away with the words that an empty table was taken away. And the main character just stayed sitting with the book on only one chair. That man wasn't trying to tease or bully the hero in any way. He just didn't notice him, that's all. One day, his teacher simply forgot that the hero even existed and removed his desk, although after that he still apologized to the main character. Toru Magura says that he does not want to repeat himself, but still reports again that no one is laughing at him and no one is teasing him. He is concentrating on the fact that this should not go on forever, and that he needs to assert himself in front of everyone. After a while, the main character has such an opportunity, as a dialogue unfolds in the classroom in which the guys say they want to play De Fugo. And they also start a dispute about who loses, he pays off. At this point, Mugura Tooru wants to speak. But after weak attempts, the hero realizes that no one pays attention to him as his classmates continue the dialogue, enthusiastically discussing some kind of series. Tooru realizes that he can't even get the words out of himself. He thinks about what a mumbler he is, and that he would have to spend all his school years like this, like a simple decoration in their classroom. The main character thinks that everything is lost for him. But at this moment, some girl who entered the classroom begins to address the class. She loudly asks her classmates if they really took Toru's desk again. She asks the guys to think about him at least once. And then he tells them to put the desk back in its place. Mugura joyfully greets the newcomer, calling her Haranaga. And the guys who took away the hero's desk are surprised to find him. Classmates ask Mugura about how long he was sitting there, and when he tells them that he was there all the time, they tell him to stop with his disappearances and then ask the hero to say something next time. Haranaga stands up for the main character. She asks not to yell at him since it's not his fault at all. The person to whom she says this begins to apologize to the girl, and she remarks to him that he does not need to be in front of her. Haranaga Tsumugi has been the protagonist's childhood friend since elementary school. She is a popular and kind girl who always has a smile on her face. And according to the hero, her mere presence in the room makes it brighter. Toru thinks that the girl is his complete opposite in every sense. While he is thinking, the girl smiles sweetly at the hero, which makes Mugura very embarrassed. The heroine brings his desk for Toru, for which he is a little embarrassed to thank her, to which the girl replies to the main character that it's not worth it. At this moment, Toru thinks with a smile on his face that sometimes even his own family forgets about him, but she, Haranaga, always notices him. But something continues to disturb the hero. After some time walking down the street, the hero thinks about something. He thinks about how he can't get into a conversation with the guys again. The hero thinks that if it wasn't for Haranaga, they wouldn't even notice him. He realizes that he is an invisible man and he will have to be like this for eternity. The hero compares himself to tasteless chewing gum. People passing by hear him. At this moment, the hero suddenly stops. He thinks he can't live with this forever. Therefore, Toru decides to get rid of his pessimism first. He decides to start doing what he likes, and finally decides to change his life. He seriously thinks about what he loves most in the world, and he realizes that he is most attracted to watching stray kittens. This is a secret hobby of the hero. It becomes possible due to his invisibility. Even the most careful cats do not pay any attention to Toru at all. Cats are adorable when they think that no one sees them. They calmly go about their business. The main character freezes for a short time, and then realizes that in the end, even in his favorite business, he is just an empty place. And in desperation, the hero gets down on his knees. And even worse, he watches cats, deliberately hiding, further aggravating the situation. Toru Magura thinks that he is completely hopeless, and that one day he may simply disappear from this world without leaving a trace. The main character suddenly, with a sad look, draws attention to a passing black cat, which he has been following all this time. He notices that this animal is alarmed and wary, and then thinks that perhaps the reason for this is that she wants to hide her food. And after that, the main character mentally asks the black cat not to worry, because no one sees her except himself. But immediately after these words of the hero, the black cat begins to speak humanly. She utters the phrase that everything seems to be clean. And after that, to Toru's intense surprise, the black cat begins to transform strangely. This elegant animal turned into a beautiful dark-haired girl. Previously a cat, the girl sighs heavily and then begins to talk about how, after turning into four-legged animals, her thighs are like lead. At the same moment, scared by the whole situation, Mugura plops to the ground. And suddenly, a dark-haired beautiful girl who turned from a cat finally turns her attention to the frightened hero. She gets very scared, surprised by such a sudden appearance of a man, to which the main character retorts to her by saying that she herself has recently become a cat from a girl. The main character thinks about the strange outfit of the dark-haired girl in front of him. He thinks about who she could be, as well as who the heroine's outfit reminds him of. But she interrupts his thoughts. However, the main character still asks if this girl is a witch, and at the same moment, she begins to transform again. And the hero is anxiously thinking about who the heroine will turn into this time. The girl turned into a child, which surprised the hero. The witch says that she hates it the most, and also says that the hero just did it to her. She says that if a person reveals the witch's true identity, she will be cursed and lose half of her physical strength. Her conversion to a girl, she says, is Tooru's doing. And now she, the great witch, stands here in a pathetic guise. The hero belatedly realizes that there really is a witch in front of him. The witch tells Tooru Mugura that since he has revealed her identity, he cannot escape her so easily now. To which the main character fearfully asks the witch to save his life. But then the dark-haired witch suddenly tells the hero that she will use her magic and fulfill any one of Tooru's wishes. The main character is extremely surprised at how the circumstances turned out, so the witch has to repeat her words to him again. Tooru Mugura is surprised that this is somehow soft for a curse. To which the dark-haired witch replies to Tooru Mugura that the curse is lifted by fulfilling one wish of a person who has seen the true appearance of a witch. And when Tooru Mugura finally understands the meaning of the current situation, the dark-haired witch begins to hurry him and also asks him to make exactly the wish that she can fulfill as soon as possible. The main character is thinking about his desire. He is immersed in memories from childhood, where the only person who noticed him was Haranaga and his girlfriend stood up for him, even when the main character was accused by adults. An adult aggressively asked little Tooru Mugura why he had left the lesson. He has been told many times to be with everyone. The little boy makes excuses, saying that he did not go anywhere, but he speaks too softly. Someone says Tooru didn't go anywhere. The hero's childhood friend says that Tooru always comes to lessons 5 minutes before they start. She tells the teacher that Tooru is the only one from the class who always brings the teacher's favorite red chalk. And after Haranaga turns to Tooru Mugura supporting the main character, she tells him that everything is fine and that she sees him perfectly. After a series of flashbacks, the main character tells the witch that he is an invisible man. He says of himself that he is a characterless squishy, a mumbler, and a weakling. Tooru Mugura hates it in himself. Therefore, the main character tells the witch that he wants to be brave, at least to tell one girl that he really likes her. Therefore, he wants to stop being an empty place. The main character desperately tells the witch that he is hopeless, that he cannot change in any way even if he hates himself. He tells the dark-haired witch that if she can really fulfill his every wish, then let her help him change. And the dark-haired witch asks the main character if this is really his desire. She tells him that with her magic, for example, she can even make him a millionaire in an instant. And when the witch is convinced of the hero's desire to change, for some reason she calls him names. She declares that such snotty, worthless desires infuriate her the most. She tells the main character that she is giving him one last chance to think it over carefully and wish for something simple, 5 quadrillion yen or something like that. The dark-haired witch sighs heavily, closing her eyes, and then tells the main character that desire is desire. And if it is not sincere, then its fulfillment will not remove the curse anyway. So she accepts it and will do her best. And then the witch says that first of all she needs to look at the girl that the main character liked so much. Therefore, both heroes arrange a mini-surveillance of the same Haranaga. After that, the dark-haired witch asks the main character if he has heard the phrase that you can't jump over your head. To which the main character tells her that he understands everything perfectly and that he knows that he is not worthy. To which the witch asks him not to be so self-critical. And the witch also tells the hero not to worry, as she will take care of everything. A little mind control magic, and even a beauty not his size would throw herself at his neck. But the hero stops her, saying that you can't just brainwash his girlfriend. To which the witch tells him that for a weakling, he is surprisingly persistent. Tooru Mugura tells the witch that he does not want Haranaga to change, since only he wants to change. The witch says that she understands that the main character wants to raise his self-esteem and impress Haranaga with his confidence. And then he says they'll try something. And the next moment she creates some kind of scary monster. And the main character is scared and asks the girl what kind of monstrous thing it is. The dark-haired witch says that this monster is a golem and she created it with her magic. She declares that she will order this creature to attack Haranaga, and he, Tooru Mugura, like a knight, will run out and save that girl. To which the main character tells the witch that he doesn't stand a chance against this golem. To which the witch calms Tora down. The girl calmly tears off a small piece from the monster. The dark-haired witch tells the main character that she made a golem out of soft tofu. Therefore, Mugura is able to cope with him, even with his puny little hands. And Toru Mugura suddenly asks the witch what would happen if he, Toru, abruptly ran out and started hitting that monster. He would scare Harunaga a lot, instead of liking her. To which the dark-haired witch tells the main character to try to make his movements look cool. After these words, the hero concentrates and prepares to strike. Toru strikes a very weak blow, to which the witch calls him a weakling. The witch says that she is already beginning to doubt their success. The hero apologizes and says that he will just die of shame now, to which the witch tells the hero that his passing away will not solve any problems. She tells him that they will fulfill his wish and remove the curse from her before he leaves this world. The girl says that she will improvise and then orders the golem to grab Harunaga. And the main character at this moment tells the witch that he twisted his arm. It amazes her. Well, the golem is already starting to walk. The dark-haired witch tells her creature that he is going the wrong way. And then, to Toru's great surprise, realizes that she cannot control him due to lack of magical power. And Toru's interlocutor also realizes that the golem seems to be starting to melt. But also her creation begins to head towards two little girls. The hero says that it is necessary to stop the golem as soon as possible, otherwise those little girls can get badly hurt. But the witch tells the main character not to worry, because the golem is just a huge piece of tofu, which means he won't be able to do any harm to anyone. However, he can make quite a lot of noise. The witch talks aloud about what will happen if someone realizes that the golem was created using magic. Then her true identity will be revealed. And this means that the power of her curse will double again, and that, in other words, she once a strong witch will come to an end. And then, to the extreme shock of the main character, the witch with a serious expression tells him that his guts will explode and he will leave this world. The main character, upset, asks the dark-haired witch about why it turned out that his life is now in serious danger. To which the dark-haired witch tells him that such things as wish fulfillment are always fraught with risk, and now their destinies are firmly intertwined. After that, Toru Mugura, scared, tells the witch that since his life is in danger, then let her no longer do such things that she, the dark-haired witch, is unable to control. To which his interlocutor says that she did not think that this curse would take away so much of her own energy. Toru Mugura asks his interlocutor if there is any way to somehow restore her selected strength. To which the girl replies that she can just wait, although it will take some time. Although there is still a way to make up for it immediately. But after a little thought, she tells the hero that she can't do it right now. And the main character asks her what they should do now. The hero reflects that the fact that the golem is walking around the city will not break the witch's disguise. And if they leave now, then no one will guess that this is her handiwork. And besides, the golem will not cause harm. Mugura thinks that he is a weakling, an empty place. He hates it in himself, and after these words the hero rushes to the golem. Toru Mugura thinks that he is completely hopeless. But even so, the main character still shields defenseless little girls with his body to protect them from a monster that they don't even know exists. The main character thinks that even if they don't get hurt, they can get very scared because of his fault. That's why Toru couldn't just leave them and run away. And at the same moment, the golem completely melts in front of the main character, and the girls turn questioningly at the noise behind them. Toru Mugura, completely confused, tries to tell the girls that this is not what they thought, that there is no magic at all. But the girls don't notice anything, they say they imagined it. The hero is surprised, and the witch irritably remarks that she did not think that such a thing was even possible. She tells the hero that he really didn't seem to be joking when he said that he was invisible, and that his aura of invisibility is so strong that it can hide even a golem. The hero says in a panic that he does not believe that his presence can hide such a supernatural thing from prying eyes. He thinks that in this way, he will never be able to get rid of his supernatural gift. The witch is trying to calm the hero down. She tells him that although the ability is specific, it's not that bad. After all, at least thanks to her, they were not revealed and the little girls were not afraid. And strangely enough, but perhaps its invisibility is its main highlight. These words catch the hero's attention, they confuse him. He confusedly tells the dark-haired witch that this is the first time he has been told such a thing. The heroine says that the golem is no longer a problem, but now we need to do something with its remains. And she asks the hero to close his eyes for a second. The main character does not understand why he needs to do this, and the witch tells Tor that someone can pass by and see the golem. Therefore, Mugura obediently closes his eyes. And at that moment, the witch approaches Tor and kisses him. The hero is incredibly confused. He looks at his companion and she pulls away and snaps her fingers. She says it's a completely different matter now. The hero is still in shock. The witch informs him that the kiss restores magical energy. Mugura tells her that he has never heard of such a thing. The girl says that through a kiss, a person's physical strength is transformed into magic and transferred to the body of a sorceress. In this way, you can restore magical energy if necessary. His interlocutor says that immediately after the kiss she had to spend money on a spell. Therefore, he suggests Mugura Tooru to repeat it again. Tooru confusedly tells the girl that he is terrible at this, and also he wants his first kiss to be special. The witch tells him not to worry, as this will no longer be his first kiss. It confuses the hero. Tooru tells the witch that she told him before that she would not be able to restore magic power now. And the witch tells him that she just gave Tooru the opportunity to manifest himself. She asks the hero about how he feels if he is more like the person he wants to become. The hero is excited by these words. He says just a little bit, and the witch does not let him finish and kisses Tooru again. The hero begins to notice the advantages of kissing a witch, but then stops himself, saying that it is only for the sake of restoring her magic. At this moment, Harunaga approaches them, and noticing the hero, the girl addresses him by name. She asks him what he is doing here. Harunaga, who accidentally noticed the main character, asks him about what he is doing here. Tooru Mugura turns to his childhood friend in extreme embarrassment. The main character is panicking about whether Harunaga saw his kiss with the witch. He thinks that he urgently needs to justify himself, because from the outside it would look like he kissed a child. Tooru froze and looked at the witch in confusion. At that moment, as if understanding Mugura's silent request, the dark-haired girl gets up and walks straight towards Harunaga. Standing in a cute pose, the girl, addressing the newcomer, asks her if she is, by chance, Toru's girlfriend. The main character is very surprised by such a change of scenery and such a presentation of this situation. Harunaga sweetly introduces herself to the witch, agreeing that she is Toru's friend. And then he asks the girl about who she is. The witch says her name is Zara. She happily declares that she just arrived at her cousin's house today. And then, still smiling, she tells Harunaga that she was glad to meet her. Harunaga asks Zara again if she is Toru's cousin, to which the witch immediately agrees. And then Zara tells Harunaga that her brother, the main character, got something in his eye. And the witch asks Toru's friend to look, under the pretext that she herself could not see anything. All this time, the hero, who is sitting silently, reacts with embarrassment. And at the same moment, Harunaga tells Zara with a joyful smile that of course she will look. She asks Muguru to come over, and then begins to look at the hero's eyes very closely. Tooru, of course, is very embarrassed. And after a few seconds, he already breaks away from Harunaga with the words that everything is already fine, and that it's just an eyelash. And then the main character jumps back to the witch in embarrassment. He says that it's time for them and says goodbye to Harunaga until tomorrow. Left alone, Harunaga thinks that Tooru is a little strange today. After a while, the witch tells Tooru that she tried her best for him, but it would be no use if he was so shy at the sight of him. The main character apologizes, saying that he is just not ready yet and that his heart almost jumped out of his chest. And then, in great embarrassment, he asks the witch about what kind of joke this was with his cousin. To which Zara replies that he stood up like a tree stump himself, so she had to improvise, and tells him that let him consider it a lie in the name of salvation. And also, the witch cunningly tells Tooru that at least next time she won't arouse Harunaga's suspicions. Mugura thinks that the witch is right in this sense. The main character Tooru confusedly asks the witch about what she is going to do next. Does she want to brainwash Harunaga? Then the hero wants to say something else, but he cannot finish and faints, much to the surprise of his companion. Mugura wakes up in his house. After waking up, he abruptly jumps up on the bed and is surprised to find himself in his own house. He thinks that everything that happened to him before is just a dream. Both the witch and the desire, he thinks that he just dreamed it all. The hero sighs with relief and happily says that it was just a strange dream. But at the same moment, the witch sitting on his bed asks the hero if he has finally woken up. The hero screams in fear. As soon as Tooru calms down, he begins to carefully find out from the interlocutor whether she is real. The witch tells him to wake up already. The hero suddenly draws attention to the fact that the witch has somehow become bigger. The witch replies to him that she was able to restore some of her magical power. And that's why I was able to get closer to my true appearance. The girl leans towards the hero and then informs him that in this form she is his age. The hero confusedly asks the witch what she means. The witch asks the hero if he wants to try again, because kissing her in this form will feel even better. The hero recoils from Zara in embarrassment. He asks her to stop joking, and then adds that without a kiss, she simply would not have replenished her strength. And then Tooru thinks about it and says that since she has become bigger after the kiss, she will be able to return to her former form without removing the curse. The witch understands what Mugura is trying to tell her. She begins to explain to the hero that every witch has been taught this since childhood. And to Toru's surprise, she pulls out a glass of liquid from somewhere. She asks the hero to imagine that this glass is a magical vessel inside each witch, and the water in it is magical energy. She is not afraid to use it, because if she drinks from the vessel, she will be able to fill it with water again. However, the glass may crack and split, which is why such a picture scares me. And the witch continues, she says that now this glass looks like a pressure vessel of a curse, until it is removed and the crack is repaired. And no matter how much the hero fills the vessel, the energy will flow out of it. Mugura begins to grasp the essence of what has been said. Zara says that she must lift the curse in order to regain her true form. Until then, you'll have to make up for the magic with kisses. And then the girl menacingly asks Toru that she hopes he doesn't regret that his first kiss happened to her, since she won't leave him alone until the curse is lifted. The hero agrees. The witch tells Toru that he needs to eat first so that next time he doesn't fall off his feet so easily. She tells him that she didn't want to use magic to avoid revealing her identity. The hero perplexedly asks the witch about the next time. And then, in great embarrassment, he asks the heroine a question about whether she is going to continue kissing him. The witch angrily replies to him that she has already told Toru that she actually needs to replenish her magical power. And then she gently asks the hero if he really hates kissing her so much. The hero is confused. He does not know what to answer the witch correctly. He's trying to say that he's not disgusted, but he's very much immersed in his emotions. And the witch tells him that she understands. After that, the witch seriously tells the hero that everything depends on him, because his desire is to become brave enough to confess to Tsumugi. She tells him to do it faster, and then they will disperse faster. Toru realizes that the witch is right. But at this point, he starts talking about how it's okay for trash like him to sit and shiver in a corner. And what if he confesses to Haranaga, suddenly she will stop treating him the way she used to. The witch asks him to stop whining. The witch asks Muguru, she says that she may not understand something, but he is afraid to admit Harunage. But at the same time, he made a wish about the courage to confess. The main character confusedly tells the witch that if he decides to tell his girlfriend about his feelings, he will be able to make any decision she makes. So the witch does not need to influence Haranaga with magic. A witch with a scary expression on her face wishes the hero to die. And when he fearfully asks her again, she replies that the curse is not lifted if the desire is not sincere. And then he asks Toru if he has forgotten about it. And then the witch menacingly asks the hero if he really wants to say that his most cherished desire is to admit to the girl and be refused. She asks him when he will finally stop soaring in the clouds. If he's afraid that Haranaga will reject him, then they should switch roles, to force Tsumugi to confess her feelings to him herself. When Mugura is embarrassed, the witch tells him that then Toru will no longer have to worry about being rejected. But the hero considers this unrealistic. He confusedly tells the witch that Haranaga will never admit to him. The witch notices his condition. She tells the hero to wipe his sadness from his face and cheer up. She approaches Toru and tells him that everything is fine and that this is a completely fulfilled wish. For some reason, the hero is embarrassed by these words. His interlocutor, holding out her hand to Toru's face, tells the main character that she, the witch Zara, will help an empty place like him change. The witch strokes the embarrassed Muguru on the cheek. At this moment, the hero admits to himself that he wanted to gather all his courage into a fist and confess to Haranaga, but he was always shy in front of her. And at this moment, the hero tells the witch that even if next time he gets scared again and tucks his tail, let her help him confess. The hero, embarrassed, loudly declares that he will do everything possible to please Haranaga, so he wants her to be with him. The witch turns away a little, suppressing her laughter, and then praises the mood of the hero. She adds that in this case, brainwashing can wait. The main character carefully asks the witch that her name is really Zara, and the girl answers him that this is a pseudonym, since the real name sounds more complicated. The witch suddenly tells the main character that their goal is now clear, and then he asks the hero about his family. He says his parents are on a business trip abroad. When Zara finds out that Toru Mugura lives alone, she tells him that it's cool. This means that she doesn't need to spend magic to convince people that they are one family. At this point, Toru Mugura asks the witch if she really decided to live with him. The girl answers him that it was actually logical. He has the whole house at his disposal. And then the witch explains to Toru that she cannot return to her world, as it will be too energy-consuming. And with her energy reserve, she will only be able to open the gate once now. And besides, Zara doesn't want other witches to see her like this. The hero says that he did not know that such a form was unacceptable to witches. The heroine says that she is very tired, and with these words she spreads a bed with magic right in Toru Mugura's room. The hero is first surprised by what he sees, and then tells her to stop, and asks the witch if she is really going to sleep in his room. The main character says, addressing the witch, that she can stay in the house, but let her sleep in another room, in the living room, for example. To which the witch Zara says that she will not stay alone, as it is uncomfortable for her. And the hero notices that this is a surprisingly sweet reaction. She asks Tooru to wake her up for dinner. He understands that now he has to treat her. The witch had already fallen asleep with a book in her hands. The hero looks at the sleeping woman, thinking that now she will live with him until his wish is fulfilled. The witch turns over, confusing the hero with this, and he quickly wraps the girl in a blanket. The hero thinks that it would be better for him to hurry up with the fulfillment of his own desire. Toru's heart is beating hard. The next day at school, the hero realizes that he has not been able to sleep, so it's just unrealistic when a girl is sleeping a step away from him. The hero tries not to stick it in to get ready, and at that moment, he hears the conversation of his classmates. They say that something happened to Harunaga after school yesterday. The main character thinks about his insignificance, and that he did not think at all that such a thing could happen. The guys in the class say that she was walking with her boyfriend. The realization of what happened hits Toru hard, who recently found the strength to make Harunaga love him. After school, Toru tells the witch about the conversation. She asks if Harunaga has a boyfriend, and the hero says that yesterday after school, she was seen with his classmate, although Harunaga herself says that he is not her boyfriend. The witch thinks about it, and then with an absolutely serious look says that the hero wants her to eliminate that guy. Mugura Tooru, frightened, asks the witch why she came up with this idea. He says that he just wanted Zara to listen to him, to which the witch replies to Toru that it is better to wipe that upstart off the face of the earth. The hero asks the witch to moderate her ardor, although he understands that she is quite serious. The witch advises the hero in this case to gather all his courage into a fist and fight off Harunaga, break off that guy's whole buzz. And then the witch notices something worriedly. This is Harunaga walking with a very handsome and tall young man. Even the people around are discussing the walking couple, saying that that guy, Rindo, is very cool. And then they ask questions about whether he is really dating Harunaga. At this moment, the witch presses Toru against the wall, hiding him and herself. She tells the hero, pointing to a passing couple, that it's them, and the hero wonders why they are hiding. The witch tells the frightened and confused Toru that there is nothing to catch their eye as they need to act. Rindo is a guy who is noticed everywhere and everything. Toru thinks that his opponent is his complete opposite. At the same moment, the witch Zara reaches out her hand to Mugura, and the next second she's already kissing Toru. When the girl pulls away, the hero looks at her with great embarrassment. The main character reminds the witch that she still has plenty of energy. At this point, the witch tells him that it's just in case, to be sure that there is enough energy. The witch confidently declares that it is necessary to prepare well for a meeting with such a handsome man as Rindo. The witch dresses up and then asks the hero what he thinks she looks like. Toru hesitantly calls Harunaga, who happily turns to him. When he sees the witch, he asks the hero who this woman is, to which the witch is responsible for the fact that she is also his cousin, Zara's sister, and introduces herself to Harunaga as Zana. Harunaga asks again about the relationship of the two fictional sisters, and Zana assures the girl that Zara told her about Toru's friend. At this point, Rindo turns to Harunaga with a question about whether his companion knows the newly arrived girl, to which Harunaga replies that she is Toru's cousin. Rindo asks again, not understanding what kind of person he is talking about. And at this moment, the main character greets Rindo. The guy is very scared because he does not understand where Mugura came from. At this moment, the witch thinks that Toru has been here all this time, and then she realizes that it is better not to tell Rindo about it. The witch is a little embarrassed to ask who this beautiful young man in front of her is, and if he is Harunaga's boyfriend. At this point, a very confused Harunaga says that they made a mistake. Rindo and she just met at the admissions ceremony and ended up in the same class. And then Rindo also moved to her neighborhood, so now they're neighbors. After these words, Zana screams that they have lost the storyline with this heroine. Toru and Harunaga react without understanding. Toru and the witch step aside. The main character asks her what she is saying and what the storyline is, to which the witch responds to the hero so that he can judge for himself. It's like in that visual novel that Mugura played. She tells him that he is just a childhood friend and that he cannot compete with such a handsome prince. The main character in upset feelings says that no matter how much it hurts, but the words of the witch are true. The witch continues to retell the script of the novel. She tells the main character that during his travels he will meet a beautiful thief and marry her. Toru tells the witch that Harunaga was with him in a difficult moment of his life, and then he asks her not to go into her own save files without his permission. Rindo silently observes the situation. Rindo says that, as Harunaga said, he is just her neighbor. He says they are just going home together as they are on their way. And then, to Toru's intense embarrassment, he adds not to worry for now. And at this moment, the main character wonders if Rindo's words mean that he likes Haranaga. And also Toru thinks that his girlfriend has always been popular with guys, so he has nothing to be surprised about. Also, Toru Mugura thinks that Rindo is like a dream for every girl, so Rindo and Haranaga, are just created to be together with each other. At the same moment, the hero remembers that he has an amazing ally, who is a witch. He convinces himself that he does not need to be afraid. After all, Rindo may be handsome, but he has Zara as an ally. With these thoughts, he looks at the witch with admiration. And Zara, as if waiting for her turn, begins to enter into conversation. She asks Haranaga about what happens. She is not Rindo's girlfriend, and then, with a sly smile, the witch begins to reveal the idea. The witch, making a cute face, suggests that Rindo go on a date with her. Rindo is surprised by such an open offer. Toru and Haranaga are also puzzled by this turn of events. The witch approaches Rindo. She tells him that as soon as she saw him, her heart started beating very fast. Rindo, even more shocked by such pressure, tries to step back. But the witch continues. He tells the hero that he may not be interested in mature women like her, to which Rindo responds with a denial. And then Zara asks him if his words mean that everything is fine. And already using all her witchcraft, she again asks Rindo if he will go on a date with her. Rindo looks at the witch in fascination and then sweetly replies to her that of course they are going on a date. The witch rejoices at the situation, and Toru, who is watching everything that happened, thinks about what the witch has just done. And then Zara suddenly says that in that case, Toru can go home with Tsumugi. To Toru and Haranaga's surprise, Zara leaves with Rindo, telling him that he is a cutie and that his skin is as velvety as her younger sister's. She has an inhuman beauty. Haranaga confusedly tells Toru that his cousin is very persistent. But at this very moment, Mugura is only thinking that right now he can go home with Haranaga. Toru thinks that this is a chance for him to be alone with his girlfriend, and then the hero excitedly thinks about what would happen if Zara did something to Rindo. The hero remembers the witch's words about whether he wants her, Zara, to eliminate Rindo, and then asks Toru to leave this matter to her. The hero is scared and thinks that the witch will get rid of Rindo without hesitation. The hero thinks that he is finally alone with Haranaga, but saving a person's life is more important. Aloud, the hero tells his girlfriend that he is very worried about the couple. He says that he will follow them. Haranaga, a little surprised, agrees with the hero. But when Toru already wants to leave her, the girl gently takes his hand, which makes the main character very embarrassed. And he turns to Haranaga questioningly. His girlfriend sighs and then addresses the hero by name. She wants to say something to him. And then, very confidently, she tells Toru that Rindo really isn't her boyfriend. Both characters react to this with embarrassment. Toru tells his girlfriend that he understood her. Haranaga apologizes to the main character for the fact that she shouldn't have filled his head with something like that. And then, telling Toru that they will see each other tomorrow, Haranaga runs away towards his own house. Toru is confused and thinks about what is wrong with his girlfriend, and is she terribly tired of all these rumors. He also thinks about the fact that Haranaga squeezed his hand very hard. But moving away from the situation with her friend, Toru quickly remembers about the witch. He excitedly says that he needs to find Zara. He also expresses the hope that she did not have time to spoil anything. The hero runs towards the departed couple. At the same time, Zana, walking with Rindo, claps her hands. At the same moment, Rindo, as if waking up from a dream, begins to shake his head from side to side. He doesn't understand where he is. And the witch says that her energy has run out, which means that the effect of the spell has dissipated. Rindo looks at the shrunken heroine and with a scary face asks her who she is. And the witch, in response to Rindo, also with a scary face, asks the hero if they will hang out a little and addresses him as a big brother. Meanwhile, Toru, already exhausted, is trying to catch up with the couple. Rindo has a strange expression on his face. He still can't understand what happened. And he is already starting to approach the grinning witch when Toru appears right at the same moment. He appears and hugs the witch from behind, saying that it's not worth it. Zara is a little scared by the appearance of the hero, and then she makes a remark to the hero so that he no longer grabs her from behind. The witch then asks Toru what's wrong with Tsumugi because she helped arrange a date for the two. To which Mugura excitedly replies to her that he can't go on a date if she's going to kill a man. Zara replies that she hasn't done anything yet so far. At this point, the characters notice that Rindo has turned around and is starting to leave. The witch notices aloud that her recent companion has disappeared, but then he adds that there is nothing wrong with that. And when Toru asks her what her "it's okay" means. After all, she became a baby again, and then the main character asks the witch if Rindo saw how she turned into a child. To which Zara calmly replies that he saw it. But immediately she asks the main character not to worry about the curse this time. She repeats that everything is fine. But the hero tells her that he is excited as his life depends on it. And then Toru says that Zara's life is too, by the way. He tells her that she used magic in front of the whole city. Toru adds that you can't do magic so frivolously. The witch asks the hero if he understood what he had just said. After all, telling a witch not to use magic is like telling a fish not to swim in water. But it's all for the best because she has a new plan. The witch notifies the shocked hero about this with a sly face. Zara tells Mugura to stomp home while she starts preparing. The hero agrees with the witch, but he is a little scared by the thought of preparation. After a while, Zara points her finger at her lips and tells the main character that before that she will have to replenish her energy supply, of course. This confuses Tora. The witch asks him to come closer, and the main character at this time thinks that she wants to kiss him again, and also that it greatly embarrasses him. And at the same time, Zara stares at the blushing Tora. Suddenly, the main character sits down on his knees and selflessly tells Zara that it's okay and asks her to end it. To which the witch, amused, tells the hero that he is going to do seppuku, and then seductively tells Mugura not to deny that he likes this business. After these words, Zara gently kisses the hero on the lips, and after a while the force begins to approach her, after which the witch moves away from the hero. The witch, who has already changed her appearance a little, thanks the hero and praises him, calling him a good boy. And then she tells a very confused Tor that she has to go now. But at the same second, the main character falls. The witch talks out loud about how she seems to have gone a little overboard and decides to bring Tora home first. The next day at school, the main character thinks that Zara never returned home yesterday. She said she had a plan, so Mugura was wondering what the witch was up to. At the same time, the main character notices a small group of girls and wonders if it's not Rindo. All the girls surround the handsome man who has come, they greet him and overwhelm him with all sorts of sweet compliments. Toru at the same time thinks that Rindo is popular, as always. At the moment of the hero's reflections, someone begins to sit at his desk, although he himself is sitting at it. The hero continues to reflect on the fact that Zara told him that everything was fine, but Rindo had seen a scaled-down version of Zara. Mugura doesn't understand what's going on at all. He continues to speculate about whether Rindo didn't realize that there was a witch in front of him. Is that why she told the hero that everything was fine? After all, if she mentioned that if a witch was found out twice, she would die. The hero thinks that he too will then leave this world. And at the moment of Toru's reflections, Rindo looks at him. The hero tries to pronounce the name, but Rindo does not seem to notice him. That's right, because the hero starts looking for Mugura's location after a couple of moments. Thanks to the seeding scheme, Rindo manages to find Toru. He very loudly declares to the hero that he has found him. He tells him that Mugura will not be able to hide from him. Leaning on his desk, Rindo says he wants to ask the terrified protagonist about his cousin. Averting his eyes to the side, Toru asks in a weak voice what is wrong with Zana. Rindo, angry, asks the hero to look at him, and then directly tells Mugura that he saw her turn into a child. Rindo, with a strange expression on his face, asks Toru about his connection with this woman and who she is. Toru then tells his classmate that he has no idea what Rindo is talking about, and even makes the situation look like his classmate might have had a nightmare. But Rindo screams that he remembers everything clearly. He turns to the class, but realizes that no one paid attention to his words. Rindo is amazed to realize that his fans did not hear his scream, and then asks the hero if this is the work of that woman. But Toru Mugura understands that in this situation it's about himself. He dejectedly thinks that his aura of invisibility overlaps even the aura of Rindo's omniscience. He thinks that he is somehow afraid for his own future and a little sad. Rindo tells Tor that this is strange, since next to the main character he is completely ignored even if he himself is trying to stand out. At this time, the teacher enters the classroom, greeting the students. He asks them to take their seats. When everyone is in their seats, the teacher says that a new student was transferred to their class for no reason. Toru wonders who it could be, and under the confused and joyful glances, someone enters the classroom. Much to the surprise of the main character, this newest student turns out to be a witch. The teacher says that the newcomer's name is Sazerashi Zerum. He asks to love and favor her. The hero exclaims in amazement that it is Zara. Rindo is also surprised by this turn of events, but the witch does not pay attention to any of them. The teacher thinks out loud about where the witch will sit, but she quickly solves this problem, saying that it would be great with Toru. What the teacher does not protest. The witch familiarly greets the main character, and he timidly whispers to her about what the hell she forgot at school, also in the image of a new student. The witch calmly says, leaning towards Toru Mugura's desk, that she has already told him that she has a new plan, and therefore, becoming his classmate, she will be able to help the hero at school too. And then she adds to the hero, confused by the whole situation, that she is pleased to meet him, and she also asks him to take care of himself. The witch Zara suddenly becomes the classmate of the main character, so Tooru does not understand at all what is happening now. Zara tells the hero that she is in a human school for the first time, and then asks Tooru about what their first lesson will be. And realizing that she will have math, the witch declares that it is boring. The hero tries to draw Zara's attention, as his classmates surrounded the new student from all sides. They eagerly ask the witch about where she transferred from in the first place. Someone suggests that she join them in their line group, and someone suggests showing the witch the neighborhood after school. But obviously, the witch's cold reaction and her rude question about what those gathered around her need shocks absolutely everyone. All her classmates tell her that they probably got ahead of themselves a little, apologize to her, and then say that they will see each other later and walk away from the frightening Zara. The main character with mixed emotions tells the witch that she gives everyone goosebumps and then asks the heroine if she could be a little friendlier. To which the witch replies to Tor that she has actually never been very sociable. To which Mugura remarks to Zara that in front of Haranaga, she behaved like a character in the NICO NICO NII meme. And the witch replies to the hero that if she has to smile so prettily at school, then her facial muscles will simply burst. And at the same time, behind Zara's back, her classmates ask each other if they saw her look full of disgust. And the second one replies that he did, and that his heart almost skipped a beat from that look. But later, both classmates come to the conclusion that it is nevertheless very cool. They say that Haranaga has always been the idol of their class, but now that Zara has appeared, they have two beautiful ladies in their class. And each of them is beautiful in its own way. They're like a holy virgin and a domineering, cold-blooded queen. Classmates discuss that they now have two super idols. Tooru notices to Zara that it's only her first day at school, and she's already being praised to the skies. To which the witch replies to the main character that it's not her fault at all, and in general she doesn't care. At this moment, Haranaga approaches Zara. She apologizes for her classmates. The witch tells the girl who came up that she has nothing to apologize for, and at the same time addresses her by name. Haranaga is surprised by this appeal, and she asks the witch if she knows her. At the same moment, Haranaga draws attention to the face of his new classmate. She asks her if she is related to Zana and Zara, and then Toru's friend assumes that the newcomer is the sister of both fictional heroines, which the witch agrees with. Haranaga says that all three sisters are very similar to each other. And then, with a joyful smile, Haranaga says that besides everything else, Sazerashi Zerum is one of the few who always sees Tooru. The witch tells her that Tooru is hard to spot at first glance, and that you have to listen to your heart, since Tooru cannot be seen unless you believe that he is here. Tooru discontentedly asks the girls to stop talking as if he were some kind of demon. This reaction makes Haranaga laugh. She says that just like Zara and Zana, Tooru looks cheerful when he is with Sazerashi or her sisters. Tooru, surprised and embarrassed, asks again that he looks cheerful with them. Haranaga holds out his hand to the witch, saying that she hopes they can get along. Zara tells her interlocutor that this is likely to happen and adds that she does not mind making friends with Tsumugi. And after these words, the witch, with an impudent smile on her face, amiably and firmly responds to Haranaga's handshake. The hero watches the current situation with incomprehension. He wonders what is going on here. With the words that they will see each other soon, Haranaga walks away from the witch's desk. The hero sighs in a relaxed way. He says that he got carried away since no one noticed them. And the witch, at the same moment, rejoices that she and Tsumugi will get along great. Tooru tells his interlocutor that he is very grateful that she is trying so hard for his desire. But then he asks the witch not to do anything strange anymore. To which Zara tells him that she knows and not to worry about it. The witch suddenly says, addressing Tor Mugura, that it's actually quite risky to spend a lot of time among a large crowd of people like here at school. But then she adds in a relaxed way that it's okay. The hero fearfully asks the witch again, but she is already fascinated by watching Rindo. He looks somehow too scared and tired, but immediately notices the heroine's gaze, after which he quickly looks away. The witch notices this. Then she tells the hero that she will be watching him at school. The hero does not understand why she should be watching him. To this, the witch replies to Tooru that it doesn't matter if he wants Tsumugi to fall in love with him or stop being invisible to everyone. But first, she, Zara, needs to find out the current state of affairs. Later, during the lunch break, Zara, with a tense face, asks the hero if they are laughing at him. To which Tooru replies to her that she misunderstood everything. She tells him that actually the teacher missed him at roll call and did not ask Muguru when he raised his hand. The witch tells the hero that this is an obvious mockery. But the main character tells the witch that this has been happening to him for a very long time. He says that once in high school he wrote the answer on the blackboard, and for everyone, it looked like the solution appeared on the board by itself. To which Zara, after listening to the explanations, tells the hero that it was hard for him. But Toru continues. He tells the witch that no matter what happens, Tsumugi always saw him and pointed him out to Muguru, the teacher. The main character admits that he is very happy that Harunaga cares so much about him. But at the same time, he is sorry that she has to mess with a guy like him all this time. At the same moment, the witch tells Toru that in this case, she, as his older sister, will take care of his younger brother. And she declares that now she will try to make it as visible as possible. Therefore, to begin with, the witch suggests that Toru make him the most popular in his class. But the main character does not understand at all how this will happen. And Zara tells him that she has an idea. During the lesson, the teacher tells his students that they will need to choose members of the school committee during the class hour today. There should be 2 people from their class. The teacher adds that if there are more candidates, they will hold a rock-paper-scissors contest and cut off the losers. Toru tells the witch that only 2 of the class will be on the school committee, and the witch calmly agrees. And then she happily tells the shocked Toru that this is a great chance for him, and that he will become one of the representatives of the class. Rindo, Harunaga, and Toru are standing together. The teacher says that they have drawn 3 candidates for the role of members of the school committee, and these 3 heroes are just them. But the teacher also notices that they only need 2. And then he asks the boys, Rindo and Toru, to play rock, paper, scissors. At the same moment, a completely lost Toru Mugura thinks about how this could have happened to him in the first place. Some time ago, the witch Zara tells the main character that representatives from the class are in fact bosses in their classes. She tells him that Tsumugi has already been approved, and he, the main character, will be able to establish himself in the eyes of his classmates with the help of membership in the school committee. And also in this situation, the hero will be able to get closer to Harunaga. The teacher approaches Toru's desk and asks Sazerashi if the girl also wants to audition for the membership of the school committee. She says that she just supports Toru. To which the teacher replies to the girl that this is the first time he has seen someone so strongly interested in voting. In response to these words of the teacher, Zara looks at Rindo with contempt and says, without taking such a look from her classmate, that if it weren't for one bug, everything would have already been solved without unnecessary problems. She only tells him with an even stranger expression on her face what happened to him, and then he gently wonders if he saw a ghost. The witch adds that maybe Rindo should go to the medical office and forget about voting, but Rindo asks the witch what kind of nonsense she is telling him at all. And after these words, the hero says that he is going to show them something now. And he addresses his fans with a beautiful facial expression, calling them cuties, which of course makes the girls very much and joyfully embarrassed. The girls behind Rindo begin to cheer him up. They tell him that he is handsome, that he will succeed, and that he should only go forward. After that, Rindo looks at the main character and tells Tor about who else is a bug. Mugura is confused. At the same moment, there is talk from the class that they only need 2 people to be candidates. They remember that there is still a 3rd candidate, but he seems to have gone somewhere. The guys in the class ask each other about who this 3rd candidate is and whether anyone has seen him. The hero says in a strangled voice that he seems to need to retreat, but the witch Zara quickly calms him down. Rindo starts laughing, telling no one to worry, as Toru will quietly sit down in his seat and no one will even notice. To which Zara tells him that using his own female fans as a means is mean. She adds that Toru is very vulnerable. At this point, the teacher intervenes in their dialogue. He tells the disputants that they already need to start the competition. The witch Zara approaches the main character and tells him not to worry, since choosing a candidate is not a popularity contest at all. And then she tells him that once he, Toru, wins rock, paper, scissors, the rest will be completely irrelevant. Toru is very confused by the behavior of the witch Zara. He tells the girl that he needs to win, but it's not that simple. The main character declares that there is a chance that he may not be lucky. But the witch Zara, grinning slyly, calmly asks Tora to leave this experience to her, since the girl intends to force Rindo to show everyone the stone herself. Rindo, who was standing a little apart from the witch Zara and the main character, was able to hear their conversation. He thinks that they want to force him to show the stone. Rindo looks at the whispering heroes with incomprehension. After a while, when the game starts, Harunaga wishes both heroes good luck with a sweet smile on his face. And then the teacher announces the start of the game of rock, paper, scissors. The strict teacher starts the countdown of the game, saying alternately, stone, scissors, paper. Rindo and Toru are very tense and focused. At the same time, the teacher starts counting from 1 to 3. And on the count of 3, both guys stretch out their arms. Rindo's hand shows scissors and Toru's hand shows a stone. This angers Rindo. He starts yelling at the witch Zara, telling her that everything is not as she said. And then the witch, with an uncomprehending look, asks the hero what he is trying to tell her. To which an angry Rindo replies to her that she said she would make him, Rindo, show the stone. Zara asks the losing classmate if he really decided to play scissors when he heard her phrase. She asks Rindo that he probably thought that if he showed the stone to Tor, the main character would show him the paper in response. And then, with a sly grin, the witch Zara asks Rindo about how she could even force him to show something against his own will. The heroine adds that she is, after all, not a witch. She asks her losing classmate how he could have come up with such an idea at all. Embarrassed by this turn of events, Rindo calls the witch Zara names. He tells her that she tricked him. Laughing contentedly, the witch Zara says that this is a standard phrase of all losers. And the teacher tells the fleeing Rindo that they actually still have homeroom. The witch Zara, still proud of the current situation, whispers in Tor's ear that Rindo really believed that she, Zara, could make him play the stone. And the main character absently agrees with the words of his assistant, the witch Zara. But after a few moments, Toru realizes that, it turns out, Rindo thought that she, the witch Zara, could control his choice. The main character wonders if all this means that Rindo is aware that Zara is a witch. A girl approaches him, she calls the main character by name, and Toru immediately turns around. This is Haranaga. She sincerely tells her childhood friend that she is happy that they were chosen. And then the heroine offers Tor to give his best during their membership in the school committee, with which the main character confusedly agrees. After a while, Toru Mugura realizes that he succeeded, that he was able to, despite all his aura of invisibility. And this means that now he will be the representative of the class together with Haranaga. That's how a new life began for the main character. However, a few days later at school, Toru is very upset about something again. He lies face down on his desk. The witch Zara approaches him. She asks the main character about why he is so glued. She is interested to know what happened to him. Toru Mugura frustratedly replies to the witch Zara that he just doesn't think he's suitable for this role of class representative. The hero says that even though he agreed to be a representative and told Haranaga that he would be able to give his best, he tells the witch Zara that he is still an empty place for everyone, which makes him very uncomfortable when they attend meetings in the school committee. And Toru says that all his efforts go only so as not to interfere with Haranaga. The main character says that no matter what he does, no one notices him. People ask about where the class representative is, and even if Toru starts waving his arms or raising his voice, but no one sees him anyway, and they think that the representative of their class simply did not show up. The witch Zara is amazed at how bad the situation is. Toru Mugura tells the witch that his business is going like this. He just can't handle his duties as a class representative properly. After thinking a little about the words of the main character, the witch Zara tells him that she made him a representative of the class because she decided that it would benefit him. But in her opinion, she seems to have made a mistake about that. And after these words, the witch apologizes to the hero. But Toru suddenly says that it's not like that at all. Zara asks the main character again, trying to figure out what he means. Toru tells her that although he is useless as a representative, he is happy that he can be with Haranaga. And then Toru, with a happy smile on his face, adds that everyone complains about his work and says that Rindo would definitely be a better candidate, since being a gray mouse for a class representative on the school committee is simply unacceptable. The witch Zara tells the hero that it sounds bad and then asks him why he is so happy about it then. Toru says very contentedly that this is because it means that everyone notices him. After all, until he was a representative of the class, almost no one even knew that he, Toru Mugura, existed. The main character continues, telling his interlocutor that now the whole class knows who Toru Mugura is. The guy is a quiet guy who was able to beat Rindo in the voting. Toru, still happy, tells the witch Zara that this is a big step forward, and it's all thanks to the fact that she made him a representative. The main character sincerely thanks his assistant. But the witch Zara suddenly accuses the hero, calling him stupid. She says that he always thinks only negatively, but manages to arrange the obvious failure in a positive light. The main character says that yes, that's probably how it is. But he completely does not notice how the witch Zara is greatly embarrassed by his gratitude. At the same time, somewhere in the school corridors, a strange girl approaches Haranaga, and when the heroine turns around, the strange girl begins her question. Apologetically, she asks the main character's friend if she knows a girl named Zara. She tells her that she is looking for her, since it seems to her that she is now at this school. A strange girl asks Haranaga if she has seen her, to which Toru's childhood friend replies that Zara is not at school. And the strange girl is a little upset by Haranaga's words. But after Haranaga suddenly adds that it is Zara's sister, Sazerashi Zaram, who studies here. The strange girl asks again, saying that her sister, that's how it is. And then she asks Haranaga if in that case she could tell her how to find Zaram for the heroine. And then a strange girl, whose ears somewhat resemble those of the witch Zara, tells Harunaga that she is Sazarashi's girlfriend. Walking down the school corridor, the witch Zara suddenly says that she has a bad feeling. Toru looks at the heroine with interest. He asks her what she means, to which the witch Zara replies to him that this is definitely a very bad feeling. She thinks something bad is going to happen soon, but she doesn't know what it is yet. The witch Zara says that if she had more energy, she would have said more precisely. And then the girl suddenly attacks Toru. She tells him that she needs to replenish her magic. The main character is shocked and confused by this turn of events. He asks the witch Zara if they really need to do it right here, to which the heroine asks him not to be afraid and tells him that no one will see them here. The witch seductively tells the main character that this time she will not pump him out until he loses his pulse. And then he asks the hero if he is against it. When Toru Mugura tries to refuse her, the witch carefully asks him if he really is against it, and without being rebuffed, she begins to approach the main character. There is a kind of heavy atmosphere hanging over, but the next second, the strange girl who is looking for the witch appears out of nowhere. She tries to jump into Zara, but the witch, to Toru's great surprise and fright, manages to jump out of the girl's way in time. And she runs into Toru with all her might. The newly arrived girl is so happy to meet her friend that she begins to bombard Zara with questions, without getting off the main character, which greatly embarrasses him. She tells the witch that they haven't seen each other for a very long time, and then asks her how she is doing. But the witch Zara suddenly disappears somewhere. Noticing this, the girl leaves the main character. She asks aloud where Zara could have gone. Greatly embarrassed, Toru Mugura continues to sit on the floor. He wonders what it was. At the same time, the witch Zara looks around the corner, and she asks the main character if the strange girl who attacked them so much has left. Terrified, Toru Mugura immediately bombards the witch with questions about who this strange girl was. After all, no one was there a second ago, and she seemed to have appeared out of thin air. The main character asks the witch Zara if this was some kind of manifestation of magical power, to which Toru's interlocutor, to his great surprise, tells him that it was not something like magic, but it was the real magic. Zara says that the strange girl's name is Verida, and that she is the same witch as Zara herself, and she is also her boss. The main character is shocked to say that this means that there are other witches besides Zara too. There are even those who are above her in position. Toru says that this means that the witch Zara is also someone's subordinate. The main character wants to say something else, but his interlocutor stops him, asking why he suddenly has such an interest. The next moment, Toru realizes that he now knows that Zara's boss is also a witch. He carefully asks his interlocutor if this means that that curse will also fall on her now. But the witch Zara assures the main character that he has nothing to worry about. Those who have already seen through the witch once will not be able to cast this curse again. The witch Zara says her boss won't have any problems. And after that, Zara, with a very pleased look, tells Tor that he, in fact, can now freely communicate with any number of witches, and then she asks the main character if it's cool. But then Toru replies to his interlocutor that he does not yet understand what could be good about it. And after that, the main character begins to worry. He wonders what the boss of the witch Zara forgot here. To which his interlocutor, a little annoyed by what is happening, tells Tor that, of course, because her boss wants to find her, since now she, the witch Zara, is listed as missing. In response to these words from his companion, the witch, a frightened Toru, tells her that then they needed to talk to her. And then he confusedly asks the witch Zara about why she, knowing the reasons for her boss's arrival, hid when Verida came for her. The witch Zara is only irritably silent in response. And after that, Toru's interlocutor, with an evil face, tells the main character that it is difficult for her to find a common language with people like her boss. And Toru Mugura exclaims about whether this is the only reason for his interlocutor. To which the witch Zara, angered by the situation, tells Tor that this is not her only reason. The witch says she can't let her boss know she's cursed. Toru, confused by the emotions of his interlocutor, asks her why she thinks so. The witch Zara says with a completely serious look that at the moment her strength is at the level of a hamster or a landworm. And she also adds that if other witches find out that this curse has been placed on her, then she will be branded as a worthless witch and simply fired. From these words, the main character falls into a pessimistic state. He thinks that in other words, Zara may lose her job because of some, in the opinion of Toru himself, an inconspicuous loser. And the witch indifferently tells Tor that he has taken over again. She asks the main character to stop with his negative thinking. And after that, the witch Zara tells her interlocutor that they should just hide from her boss. She told the main character that they needed to figure out how to throw Verida, her boss, off the scent. The hero notices to his interlocutor that her boss has actually been able to track the witch Zara to this school. And then Toru Mugura asks the heroine how they can deceive her boss Verida in this case. And at the same moment, some strange magic begins to happen behind the back of a very frightened Zara. And the next second, that strange girl jumps out of the magic circle that appears, who is not only a witch, but also Zara's boss. She hugs the witch Zara with a joyful cry that she was able to catch her ward. To the surprise of the scared guy Tooru, the witch Zara tells her boss that they haven't seen each other for a long time. And Verita happily talks about how glad she is to see her ward Zara again. Still strangely hugging the witch helping the main character, Verita tells her how worried she was. Verita asks Zara where she has gone, to which the witch Zara, with a dissatisfied expression on her face, replies to her interlocutor that she was working. And after that, the witch Zara asks Verita if she can let her go, since she has already become stuffy and hot. To which her boss replied to Zara that she was as cold as ice, however, as always. Tooru silently and confusedly watches what is happening, hiding behind the corner of the wall. He is desperately thinking about what is happening now and that he has to do something now. And then he thinks that on the other hand, if he stops hiding now, then Verita, Zara's boss, will find out that she is cursed. Which Verita says that it was very difficult for her to find Zara. After all, even though the students saw her, they did not tell her any sensible information that could contribute to her search for Zara. To which the witch Zara tells her interlocutor that this is not surprising, since she Verita looks rather suspicious. But her boss suddenly interrupts their sweet welcome conversation and asks a question about what the witch Zara forgot at school. And Zara reacts with caution to these words of Verita. Verita, with a sweet expression on her face, tells her ward that she should not be in such crowded places. And then he asks the disgruntled witch Zara about whether something is holding her here. The next moment Zara, wearily closing her eyes, says that now she seems to have no choice and she will have to tell everything. Hearing these words, the main character is alarmed. Tooru is scared thinking about the fact that Zara really wants to tell her boss about everything. He thinks that the witch will now lose her job because of him. The witch Zara, turning to face her boss, begins to tell Vera about what happened during all this time. Verita puts her arm around Zaram's waist. Zaram told Vera that one of the local schoolchildren found out that she was a witch, and because of this a curse fell on her, so she entered this school to stay with him forever. Verita's mouth opened a little. She was very surprised by what she heard. The culprit of the curse that happened to Zaram was hiding nearby. It was a guy named Mugura Tooru. Verita was standing behind Zara. They were surrounded by an empty school corridor. She was surprised that Zaram had become careless. Zaram still stood with her back to her friend and refuted her words. Zara turned to her friend. She blushed with embarrassment and said that she wanted to show her appearance to a man because she was head over heels in love with him. Verita and Tooru, who was eavesdropping on their conversation, are shocked by what they heard. The girls stood and looked at each other. Toru's eyes and mouth were wide open. He could not recover from the shock and believe in the glory of Zaram that she was in love with him. Tooru sees Zaram's frowning face. He thinks that all this is part of her plan so that she won't be considered stupid because she revealed her identity herself. Tooru remembers Zaram's evil face and cannot understand that love is actually a mitigating circumstance in this situation. Is it possible that Zara can fall in love with someone because she has an icy heart? Moreover, he does not believe that she could fall in love with him even if he were the last man on earth. Tooru doesn't see the point in all these lies. Tooru began to think that if he understood Zara's feelings, then the boss must also understand and accept her feelings. Verita does not believe that someone like Zara can have a lover, especially since a person has become one. She asks to tell Zara everything about her feelings. Zara is surprised that Verita took the news so calmly. Verita told Zara to introduce her lover, especially if they were bound by a curse. Zara turns sharply towards Tooru and points with her finger to approach them. Tooru blushed all over, began to shake and be embarrassed from fear, approached the girls, and timidly began to make love to Verita and Zara. As soon as Tooru approaches, Verity grabs his face with her hands to examine him. Verita lets go of Tooru and says that he is kind of smeared. It seems her glasses are fogged up. Tooru tells her that her glasses are fine. Zara grabs Toru's hand and hugs her. Zara says she apologizes for her sudden break from work, but it was because of the curse that fell on her, and not at all because she was careless and inattentive. Zara did not let go of Toru's hand. He looked at Zara and thought that she was actually ready to do anything not to show herself to be a loser witch. He did not understand why it was so important to her. Verita, holding her finger to her mouth, said that everything would depend on how cool your partner was. Zara holds Toru's hand, who cringed at the words he said. He did not understand how something could hide from him. Verita sarcastically continued to say that even if Zara accepted the curse on her own for the sake of some loser, she would still be a loser, regardless of her strength. Tooru and Zara stared at Verita in disbelief. Zara answers without hesitation for a long time that then she will tell you how cool her lover is. Toru cried out in surprise. Zara went on to say that Toru may look like a simpleton, but he is good at studying and sports. He knows 100 types of martial arts and he is very smart. Toru thought that Zara was describing him as some kind of superhuman. Zara also said that he was a professional killer who could sneak in anywhere and not be noticed. Toru thought that at least somewhere Zara was telling the partial truth. She ends up saying that he is actually a hero who is a Prince Charming in another world, and in the next life he may become a super villain. Toru thought after these words that Zara was already starting to talk nonsense. Verita was embarrassed and said that he was really cool, although you wouldn't immediately tell from his appearance that he was. Zara thought that Verita actually believed her words. Verita spread her hands to the side and said that let Toru be as cool as she talks about it, but she did not say the main thing that Zara liked so much about Toru. Zara looked away and thought about it. Zara abruptly grabs Toru's head and approaches his face, which is flushed with surprise. Their faces were tightly drawn together. They look into each other's wide-open eyes. Zara broke the silence by saying that she really liked Toru's face. After a little thought, she changed her mind saying that she liked Toru's gloomy type and also the mind. Zara continued to hold Toru's face. Then she turns to Vera and says that she likes everything about Toru, absolutely everything. Zara also thought to herself that she had tried so hard to come up with a reason for liking, but could not describe something specific. Toru was immersed in the thought that it was his fault that Zara was mired in problems, that her job was hanging by a thread and she could be fired because of him. He asked her forgiveness and thought how to get out of this crisis situation together. Verita said sharply that in fact Zara's words did not sound convincing, as if she had known Tora only recently. Zara got angry and whispered that at what point did Verita become so perceptive. Verita continued to wait for Zara's reply. Now Verita turned to Tor and asked him what he liked so much about Zara. He jerked at the unexpected question and he fell into a stupor as he did not know what to answer. Toru, in a dazed state, tried to answer something indistinctly. Zara covers Toru's mouth with her hand and says Toru is very shy, although he is so cool. He has a lot of discomfort communicating with strangers. Verita replied that how could she now understand the real feelings between them or not. She looked away and at that moment a thought struck her. Verita transforms into a very revealing witch costume. Toru is shocked by what he saw. Verita is dressed as a witch. She also has a big hat on, uses her magical abilities, and a thick target with large links appears on the neck of Toru and Zara, which connects them together. Toru pulls the chain and does not understand what Verita did to them. Zara glares at Verita, and it seems she understands what kind of magic Verita used on them. Verita stands aside from the guys and laughs at them. Verita said that this is the magic of revelation, in another way the innermost hearts, and it works like this. If love is really real, then the chains will turn red, and if the love between the guys is not real, then the chains will turn black. Zara and Toru stared in horror at what was happening. And Verita continued to say that if they saw the black color of the chains, it would be clear that they were not a couple, and that Zara had foolishly revealed herself and was cursed. Toru, shocked by what he heard, thought that he did not know that witches could use magic like that. Because of Verita and her chains, their deception with Zara may be revealed. Zara frowned and looked at Tora. At the last moment something happened, she started up. Drops of sweat dripped down Zara's face, which appeared from fright. Zara stared in panic at the chain that was moving away from her chest. Each subsequent link gradually began to change color from light to dark. Verita, dressed in a witch's dress and hat, looked at Zara. Verita cheerfully asked Zara if she could see that the chains were getting dark. At this moment, Zara grabs the chain out of anger and squeezes it with all her strength. Verita was surprised by such an act. Zara's face was contorted with anger, her eyebrows were furrowed, and her teeth were clenched tightly. Out of anger, Zara makes a jerk with her hand, which contains several links. It happens with such force that the chain breaks in several places at the same time. Toru flinched in horror when he saw what an angry Zara was capable of. And Verita was very surprised by what she saw. Zara turned to Vera and said that there was no need not to underestimate, even being under a curse, she could easily dispel magic of such a low level. While Zara was talking, the chain crumbled in front of Toru's surprised eyes. Zara became more calm, she even closed her eyes, an unusual flicker appeared in the air around her. Then she sighed heavily. Zara broke the silence and said that there was no point in the chains that Verita had conjured. Verita continued to stare at Zara in disbelief, and Toru blushed once again and was very surprised. At that moment, the school skirt that was worn at dawn abruptly slipped down her legs to the floor. She was lying on her feet. Zara said that Verita already knows the truth without question. Zara was reincarnated into her true self, her hair was smoothed, her school uniform was big and hung on her. Zara said that in fact she revealed herself not of her own volition but because of her carelessness. Zara went on to say that if Verita still had the desire to fire her, she could do it. Tooru, worried about Zara's condition, approaches her in a panic. Verita covered her eyes with her big witch hat and asked Zara if she was ready for further events waiting for her. Verita rushes at Zara with all her might and embraces her. Verita, with a very cheerful face, hugged Zara tightly. Zara, horrified, did not understand why Verita reacted so strongly to her words. Verita continued to hug and rub her body against Zara. She said that Zara is always callous, but now she is so sweet that Vera wants to continue not hugging. Zara tried to free herself from Verita's embrace. She screamed that Verita needed to stop hugging her as she was very hot. Tooru stood aside and quietly watched the girls. Zara started running away from Verita. She ran after her and said that she was teasing Zara. She had fun watching Zara try to deceive Verita. Zara didn't understand why Verita had conjured the chains if she already knew the truth. Zara stops in front of Tooru. She turns her back to him and faces Vera. Verita says that Zara doesn't have to worry since no one is going to fire her. Tooru and Zara's face took on a surprised expression. Verita continued to say with a smile on her face that a witch who could dispel her magic, even being cursed, would be a terrible loss. So firing Zara was a stupid idea. Tooru and Zara's faces took on an anxious and surprised expression. Verita pointed her finger at Tora and with a satisfied expression on her face continued to say that your boyfriend would not be a hindrance. Tooru nervously replied that he hadn't done anything. Verita laughed when she heard Toru's answer. Verita jumps on Zara and starts hugging her and quite rubbed against Zara's head told Tor that he had not only revealed Zara's identity, but was also able to come up with such a thing that she had not been able to spoil so far. Tooru was embarrassed and could not answer anything. He continued to listen to Verita. She went on to say that this was enough to understand how good Tooru was. After releasing Zara, Verita came close to Tor. She leaned towards him a little and wanted to know his name. He introduced himself to Verita. Verita's face turned red, and she smiled so hard that her sharp teeth were visible. She said that Tooru had a great name and she hoped that he would continue to get along with Zara. Tooru's face was covered with drops of sweat. He was embarrassed by Verita's words and looked timidly at her. The cheerful Verita began to conjure in the air. She was calm, since her subordinate was fine. Zara did not understand what was going on and looked at Verita carefully. A stack of papers appears out of nowhere. It is so big that it exceeds the height of the girls. Verita gives them to Zara. Zara is scared. She doesn't know what it is. Verita pushes a stack of papers towards Zara and says that this is work that has accumulated during her absence. It was not easy to bring it here, in which case Zara needs to get to work immediately. Zara asks Verita if she knows that Zara has been the victim of a curse. Verita replies that she knows everything and it doesn't mean anything and she needs to get to work. Verita wraps her arms around Zara's face and says that she believes in her, that Zara is very talented, even though she is under a curse. Zara replies that talent alone is not enough here, that she constantly spends magic on Tooru's desire. Verita replied to Zara that if she was unable to handle the job, she would fire her next time. Zara, cringing with anger, said through her teeth that she would do everything. Tooru thought that Zara was radiating malicious energy directly. Verita conjured a transfer portal. She said that she would return to the guys so that they would not be bored and said goodbye to them. Zara replied that there was a Verita who would pass by so that she would continue to pass by. At the last moment before leaving the guys, Verita has an idea that she wanted to say when she came to Dawn. Verita turns to Zara, who has already started working with papers. Zara's large school uniform continued to hang from her shoulders and said that she could ask her a question. Zara was looking at Verita with interest. Verita, grinning, said that everything Zara had said earlier was a lie. Zara looked at Verita with a surprised expression on her face. She remembered the chain connecting the guys that Verita conjured. Zara opens her mouth and sighs heavily. Zara broke the silence and said that she did not understand what Verita was talking about, that of course all her words were lies that were too obvious. Verita replied doubtfully that she understood everything. Then she said goodbye to the guys and immediately disappeared into the enchanted portal. Zara was holding a stack of papers that Verita had handed her. Tooru was staring in surprise at the flickering portal into which Verita had disappeared. Zara looked at the stack of papers and said that Verita had finally left. Tor found Verita strange. Zara replied that she would never understand what was on Verita's mind and that scared her the most. Zara began to study the papers. Tooru stood by and asked what Zara was going to do with all these papers. Zara replied that she didn't know yet, that there wasn't much she could do in Loli's form. Zara buried her face in one of the papers left by Verita. Tooru asked her what kind of papers she had been given. Zara, without looking up from studying the papers, says that it is better for Tor to look at them himself. Toru looked at Zara with interest. A blonde girl in a school uniform with a backpack, a bow around her neck, walked slowly along the corridor with large windows. It was Haru. She heard her name and turned sheepishly in the direction from which the sound was coming. Rindo called her. He was also dressed in a school uniform, and he had a half-untied tie around his neck. She greeted him. Rindo asked that Haru was going home and suggested that we go together. Rindo approached Haru, now they were on the same level, and asked if she liked the role of class representative and said that Toru was just a burden. She replied that she was not a burden at all. Haru, with a beaming face, said that it was the first time she saw Toru in the spotlight, and she was sure that it was all like that for him, but he was trying very hard, and if this was happening, then she should not lag behind him. Haru finished speaking and walked in silence. Rindo looked strangely in Haru's direction. He was surprised by her words. Meanwhile, Zara held the papers in front of her and said that she finally had a chance to get rid of Rindo. On the papers she was holding, there was a picture of Rindo in a suit. His ears were as sharp as Zara's. It was a sunny day, clouds were flying over a small house. Toru and Zara were at his house. Zara was in her school uniform, the top of her blouse was unbuttoned. Her tie was also at half-mast. She loomed over Toru and said that if he wasn't feeling well, then they didn't have to do it. She didn't insist. The choice was his. Toru was lying on the bed. Zara's hands were resting on the bed. Toru's head was between them. She was hanging over him, which made him very embarrassed and timidly replied that he thought he was fine. Zara approached Toru's face and kissed him first. He closed his eyes and did not move. Zara continued to kiss and lick Toru's face. He was all red with embarrassment and continued to lie on the bed. His body sometimes trembled. Zara ran her hand towards the hair on Toru's head, which made him scream and begged Zara to wait. She was wearing underwear and a school shirt, and one of her legs was between Toru's legs. Zara got out of bed in the same clothes, pulled up her arms and said that she was full of strength again, well, almost full, about 30% of her maximum. Toru covered his face with his hands in embarrassment and said that it was time for Dawn to put on whatever she was wearing. With the help of her magic, Zara conjured clothes on herself. A dark blouse and a light skirt appeared on her. Then she exclaimed that it was good that they returned home without adventures, and all this was thanks to Tor. Zara recalled how she and Toru were returning home. They walked down a crowded street, Toru shaking with fear and dragging Zara in front of him. She said that last time, Toru's gift helped hide the golem's presence, and now it helped them get home unnoticed. Zara says that if they had kissed at school, they wouldn't have had to bother so much. Toru shouted furiously that this could not have happened if Haranaga had caught them kissing Zara in the form of a little girl. Toru gets out of bed and says that since they are already at home, he wants to ask her for a favor. Zara was wondering what Toru wanted from her. He asks that the paper that Verita gave her is a fake. Toru has enough paper with Rendo's image and shakes them in front of Zara's face and says why Rondo is depicted on these papers. Zara looks at Toru calmly. Zara conjures up a stack of papers that Verita gave her and says that this stack of papers actually contains information and reports of criminals in the demon world. Toru is in a panic at the word of the criminals. Zara went on to say that, simply put, Verita's transferred papers contain information about these evil witches. Toru jerked at what he heard. His eyes widened greatly from hearing Zara's words. He realized what her words and those papers with the image of Rindo meant. Zara replied that Toru understood correctly. A young blonde man who goes to the same school with Toru and Haru is Rindo, who is a sorcerer. Toru started up and sweated with fear and surprise. Toru looked lost and spread his hands to the side, not believing what was said about Rindo and what he really is. Zara replied that if he was discovered, he would be cursed just like her. Zara remembers her date with Rindo and says that he then revealed her identity. But the curse did not fall on her a second time. This is indisputable proof that Rindo is not human. Toru had a question that even if Rindo really is a sorcerer, then why does he pretend to be a human and go to school? Zara laughed maliciously and replied that this was exactly the information she and Toru would have to find out about Rindo. Zara reminds Tor that she had previously told him that witches and warlocks try to avoid crowded places like school to reduce the chance of being discovered, which shows a good reason why Rindo attends school. Toru calmed down and said that everything that Rindo does at school. Zara interrupts him and continues Toru's words that Rindo is chasing Haranaga. They stand in silence for a while. Toru, after thinking about the conversation with Zara, fell into prostration. Zara said that there was no point in speculating about Rindo's motives now, that it would be easier to ask him directly about it. Toru comes to his senses from Zara's words that it's time to stop Rindo and disrupt his plans. Zara takes one of the leaflets that Verita gave her and says that her job is to catch evil witches and warlocks. Toru looked at Zara in surprise and listened attentively to her conversation, that in this way she would help Toru get rid of Rindo, who prevents him from finding love. She wonders if Tor likes this arrangement of events. Toru, all wet, continued to look at Zara. She said that naturally she would need to help Toru. He was surprised that how could he help her. Zara came close to Tor and said that since her opponent was a sorcerer, she would need a lot of magical power. She stroked his hair. Toru looked up at her and shook, not understanding how he could be useful to her. Toru screamed at the top of his voice that Zara couldn't kiss him several times in one day. Zara gently touches her lips to Toru's cheek and replies that she knows. Toru squeaked at Zara's unexpected action. Toru recoiled from her, holding his hand on his face at the place of the kiss. Steam was coming from his head. He did not understand why and why Zara kissed him on the cheek. She said there was no need to rush. Zara's face was completely relaxed. The corners of her lips were tending upwards. She said that they would not solve the problem on the spot yet. They needed to act gradually, asked if Toru agreed with her. Toru blushed even more. Zara laughs. The young man says that her incomprehensible and evil laughter scares him. 3 days pass. The guys are at school. Haru confusedly asks Rindo that they might not be able to go home together today. Rindo replies that he won't be able to do it today as he has things to do. Haru continued to talk to Rindo that she was already so used to going home with him that when she went home without him she would be lonely. Rindo started up as he was surprised by her words. Zara and Toru were quietly watching the conversation between Rindo and Haru from around the corner of the corridor. Zara and Toru continued to watch Rindo. She said that he was up to something and that today he would fulfill his plan that he had conceived. Rindo walked down the corridor of the school with a serious face. Zara continued to watch him and thought that it was today that she and Toru would find out what purpose Rindo was pursuing. Rindo walks through the empty school corridors, stops in front of the wall and looks around intently so that no one is there. Rindo made sure that there was no outsider around him. He pulled his hand and put it on the wall. There was a bracelet with a large stone on his arm. As soon as Rindo's hand touched the wall, bright sparkling circles began to appear on it. At the same moment, a huge portal opens in front of Rindo, through which you can see a long corridor with high ceilings, cracked columns on the sides of the walls. Toru and Zara were hiding around the corner. They were watching Rindo. As soon as Toru saw the portal open, he was speechless. Zara watched the scene with a casual air. Rindo entered the open portal and continued to follow an incomprehensible corridor. Toru was very surprised that Rindo was actually a sorcerer and could actually use magic. Toru also said that this is the coolest magic he has seen so far. Zara narrowed her eyes angrily and said that actually every witch can do this, well, if she has enough magic for it. Zara jumped into the portal and said that she and Toru needed to go after Rindo. It was necessary to find out where he went. Toru was scared. He did not want to enter the portal and did not understand why he should follow Rindo. Zara said she might need Toru's help. Zara was still standing inside the portal. She grabs Toru by the hand and tries to force him to enter it. She hurries Toru as the portal is about to close. Toru asks to wait for Zara for a while. He falls into the portal screaming and it slams shut. Toru was stuck. The upper part of his body was on the side of the dungeon that Rindo and Zara got into, and the second, lower part of his body was still at school. Toru started screaming and calling for help. Zara stood with an indifferent face not far from the stuck Toru and looked at him. Toru also looked at Zara. Tears rolled from his eyes. Zara, with the same indifferent look, said that she had warned Toru to hurry up or the portal would close. Toru screamed again. He didn't know what to do next. Zara cautiously approaches and puts her hands on his face. She asks Toru to calm down at last. She will help him, but because of this they will most likely be noticed, and Toru needs to be prepared for these consequences. Zara's hand slipped through Toru's hair. She approaches him, then timidly kisses him on the lips. Toru blushed in surprise. His eyes were open. Zara raises her hand into the air. A flickering light emanates from it, gaining strength. Zara opens the portal and thereby frees Toru. His body freezes in the air. Meanwhile, Rindo senses someone's presence and turns around. He cuts off and runs down one of the corridors. Rindo runs for a while, stops, stretches out his hand in front and touches one of the walls. Next to him sits Zara and Toru, who hugged her tightly. Zara was looking towards where Rindo was standing nearby. She also hugged Toru. They sat motionless. Zara continued to watch Rindo and thought that Toru's aura of invisibility must work. Otherwise, they might be noticed and get into trouble. Rindo, standing still, thought about the fact that it could not seem to him that something was wrong. He wanted to find out what it was. Then the silence is interrupted by a heart-rending scream that Lindworm uttered. Rindo jumps in surprise. Zara was also scared. This scream was caused by Rindo. Someone's grinning mouth with open teeth continued to shout at Rindo and ask that he would have to wait a long time for him, just as the stranger called him to come back as soon as possible. Rindo rushes off in a hurry and replies that he is already running. Toro and Zara opened their arms and watched Rindo running away into the distance of the corridor. Rindo runs into a room surrounded by furniture and instruments related to science. There were two other people in the room with Rindo, and a man was sitting in front of Rindo in an armchair. His torso was bare and a hood was on. The second man was sitting next to me and reading. Rindo stood motionless in front of the seated man in the chair. A gloomy atmosphere enveloped the room. The hooded man tensed and moved to the edge of the chair. The hooded man looked very angry, his mouth twisted so that his teeth were visible. There was an elongated pendant around his neck. Another man sitting next to him was also wearing a hood and had a mask with sharp teeth on his face. Rindo was still standing silently in front of the two people sitting in front of him. Toru and Zara were standing apart and watching the situation. During the surveillance, Toru decides to ask Zara what kind of person it is that scares him. Zara replies that she knows it's Jermil. Zara continued to look at the muscular hooded man named Jermil and said that there were only losers here. Toru did not understand what Zara meant. She, without looking up from observation, explained that weak witches and sorcerers are called losers. They possess one or two types of magic, and the more types of magic a witch can use, the stronger she is. Toru thought over the information Zara had told him. Now he understood what she meant by calling them that. Jermil asked Rindo if there was a process in what they had discussed recently. Rindo replied that there was already some kind of result. He had almost ingratiated himself with her, but he needed more time. The hooded man with the book asked that it wasn't that simple because Rindo couldn't tell her that he was a sorcerer. Rindo also wondered if she didn't know anything after all. Jermil glared at them and was silent. Jermil shouted that Zara was also prowling the area. Zara continued her surveillance without hesitation. Jermil was tense at the news of Zara's appearance nearby. Toru was covered in sweat from screaming and began to worry. Jermil, with furrowed brows, continued to say that this was not a simple thing. He did not believe in such a coincidence, and that this Haranaga Tsumugi should know something. Toru looked dumbfounded by what he heard. Toru jumped up in fright and fell, hitting the wooden boxes behind which he and Zara were hiding. Rindo turns abruptly at the noise. Rindo screams, not realizing who else is with them. Zara gets up and says that at last it is possible not to hide. Toru apologizes to Zara for what happened. Zara gets up and gets to her feet and tells Ringo that she is helping to build Toru's personal life, and to achieve this goal, Ringo needs to be removed from the path. Toru was kneeling behind Zara, papers with images of symbols scattered around him. The two strange men and Rindo changed their faces, their brows furrowed, their eyes full of surprise. They were shocked by the sudden appearance of uninvited guests. Toru gets up from his knees and walks over to Dawn. He tells her that he doesn't understand how Jermil knows about Haranaga. Zara tells him that they have to find out, but a little later. Zara at the same moment grabs Tora by the shoulders and hugs her. In one hand she holds Tora, in the other a cloud of magic appears. Zara says that she will have to borrow Toru's energy in order to show how real magic works. Zara hugged Toru and hugged him tightly. Toru was motionless. They stood in the doorway, watched by a man in a hood and mask, Jermil and Rindo. Zara stared intently at the men around her and grinned. Toru looked at her fearfully. Jermil nervously shouted Zara's name and Rindo shouted Toru's name. They are surprised by such an unexpected meeting. Rindo starts shouting that he understood how Zara and Toru got in here. They did it thanks to Toru's invisibility. Toru cringed in fright and apologized. Zara kept her hand on Toru's shoulder in complete calmness. Jermil and another hooded man looked at the guys. They were outraged and could not believe that there was a man next to them. A man in a hood and wearing a mask that covered a cut scar above his upper lip said that it looked like the rumors were true. Zara was actually cursed. Because of this, she has to mess with people and fulfill their desires. Jermil was surprised by the words of the hooded man. Toru twitched. Zara continued to hug him and looked at the wizards from under her brows. Zara broke the silence and with a malicious smile she agreed with the words of the man in the hood and mask. Toru looked at her in surprise. Zara put her hands on her hips and continued to say that the curse was not a problem for her. Even under its influence, she was much stronger than the sorcerers standing in front of her. Jermil was speechless from what he heard. He stood in a fighting pose. Zara says that if you compare them and her, then she is the hero of the maximum level, and they are the owners of the first level, and if they want to defeat her, then they should train better. It seems to Tor that Zara has overplayed the MMO games. The sorcerers flew into a rage from the words they heard. The masked man began to take something out of his inner pocket. Jermil and Rindo's hands began to glow. They activated their magic. They were all dissatisfied with Zara's assessment and began to threaten her. A hooded man pulls out a staff from which magical symbols emanate in different directions and large sabers appear above it. Jermel clenched his fists. A stone fist came out of the ground behind them, and Rindo reincarnated into a flaming dragon. Tooru, watching the reincarnation of the sorcerers, went into shock and began to scream loudly in fear. Tooru, in a panic, tells Zara that she said that these sorcerers are weak, but after seeing their reincarnation, it seems to him that they are strong. Zara was surprised by Toru's words. Tooru hides behind Zara and does not understand how this monster can be Rindo. Rindo replies that he has transformed into a dragon. Tooru does not understand how to transform, especially into a dragon. Tooru says that warlocks are like final bosses. The wizards were embarrassed by Toru's words. They would like Toru's words to be true. Tooru continues to say that the magic he gives to Zara through kissing cannot be compared to their magic. Jermel turned red all over and started shouting that if Tooru didn't shut up, he would kill him. Tooru was scared by what he heard and apologized. Zara's face was full of indifference, and she told Tooru that he should not be afraid. The wizards would not be able to do anything at all. Jermel started threatening her too. Zara's face came close to Toru's. She told him that everything would be fine, he just had to stand and watch. Tooru looks at Zara in fright. She hugs him and kisses him. The wizards opened their mouths in surprise and shock. Tooru timidly took Zara by the shoulders, so they spent some time in an embrace surrounded by barely visible shimmering lines. Zara and Tooru finished kissing. Tooru was perplexed that Zara had done this in the presence of the sorcerers. Zara apologized with a smile on her face. She had to do it since these men were still sorcerers. Zara's clothes disappear. She becomes naked. Zara says that since the wizards are serious, she does not intend to disappoint them. A dark dress appears on Zara's body, a witch's hat appeared on her head, and a long magic staff appeared in her hands. Tooru and the sorcerers were surprised by this transformation. Zara said that now she intends to show them real magic. She stood in a belligerent pose, various magic circles appeared behind her, and there was a pupil at the top of her staff. A frightening atmosphere arose around Zara. A gloomy atmosphere reigned in the room where everyone was. A dark hole appeared on the ceiling, along the edges of which there were magic circles around the edges. From this hole, many eyes looked at the guys and paws with long claws stuck out. Tooru fell to the floor in horror from what he saw. The wizards stared in the same horror at the hole that appeared above them. Zara broke the silence and said that the best outcome would be if the wizards surrendered to her right away. Her staff began to sparkle with light. The wizards were sitting on the floor tied with a magic thread. They were lost. Fragments of bricks and furniture were scattered around. Zara said the names of the men in turn: Rindolindworm Scarmillion, Jermel Mackledes, and Ruby Rubinik. Zara looked at the stack of papers she was holding in her hands and continued to say that all the names matched Verida's list. The sorcerers were accused of breaking into the vault of the magic department, as well as illegal residents in the human world. Zara said that she even felt sorry for Rindo by giving him clothes after his transformation from a dragon to a normal form. Jermel shouted that it was time for Zara to stop talking, and it was better for her to feel sorry for Tooru, since he could also be arrested. Tooru stood aside and watched the ongoing dialogue between Zara and the sorcerers. He looked at Zara's face and thought that during the few days he had spent with Zara, he had become so used to her that he had completely forgotten that she was a witch. Tooru continued to think that he was an uninvited guest in this world, and he should not interfere in their affairs, since Toru's world and the world of witches and warlocks are very different. Tooru had a drooping state. Zara freed the prisoners from their shackles with a wave of her hand. Zara stood and looked at the wizards from top to bottom. She has 2 suggestions for them, and if they fulfill them, then this time she will let them go and even promises to give Rindo vintage jeans. Tooru stands nearby and listens attentively. A tense atmosphere appeared around Zara. She smiled and asked the wizards that they should explain to her their interest in Haranaga. Zara continued to stand over the wizards, her hands on her hips, and said that it was time to tell them why Ridno had turned into a human and started caring for Haranaga. Tooru stood behind Zara and waited for an answer from the wizards. Jermel and Ruby frowned at Zara. They could not utter a word. Rindo looked away and began to say something unintelligible. Before Rindo can say anything, he is immediately interrupted by Ruby, who took off his mask. There were 4 scars around his mouth. He said that Jermel and Rindo want to get the magic ale. Jermel was unhappy that Ruby started telling their plan. Zara complained that the wizards were laughing at her when they started talking about magic ale. Tooru listened to them in surprise. Tooru looked at Zara and said he didn't understand what they were talking about. Zara glanced at Tora. Zara replied that she didn't know much about magic ale herself. It had magic that could blacken the whole world or something like that. But all this is a legend, since no one has ever seen or used this ale. Zara compares the search for magic ale with human fairy tales. She said that it's just like searching for the Dragon King's palace with the help of a turtle, or finding a princess who has been sleeping for 100 years to wake her up with a kiss and then marry her. Zara said that if an adult sorcerer seriously thinks about such things, then he can no longer think straight. Tooru listens to Zara's story. Jermel got very angry after hearing her statement and started shouting at her and calling her names. Jermel was furious and shouted that not all the stories about magic ale were made up. He began to ask Zara that it had been known about this ale for a long time, and perhaps it was in the magic ministry in the vault where other artifacts lay. Zara came close to Jermel and brought her finger close to his face. She said that's why the wizards were accused of stealing from the magic department. She asked to see what the wizards took from there. Jermel, with a drooping look, carefully takes out a shabby-looking notebook from an inner pocket. It had a rivet on it, and a 5-pointed star is depicted on the cover. Tooru looked at the notebook that appeared with great interest. Jermel said that he and the wizards still do not know who previously owned these notebooks. Most of the entries in the notebook are unreadable, but there was one photo. Zara crossed her arms, wondering what kind of photo was in the notebook. Jermel turns over an open notebook and shows a photo attached there, in which a little girl with blonde hair pulled into a high ponytail is frozen. She was smiling. As soon as Tooru saw the photo, there was no limit to his strangulation. Tooru abruptly snatches the notebook out of Jermel's hands. He shouts Haranaga's name. Jermel was even scared by Toru's unexpected act. Tooru took a small photograph of little Haranaga from his notebook and stared at it intently. Tooru, looking at the photo, thought that he could not be mistaken. Definitely this is a photo of Haranaga. He was wondering how she could get into this notebook. The cleavers were still sitting on the floor. Zara looked at them. Everything was clear to her. Zara crossed her arms and calmly said that the sorcerers decided to approach Haranaga to find out from her clues about the magic ale. Here Rindo broke his silence and said that they did not have 100% information that Haranaga knew something about this ale. But perhaps she had information about the owner of this very notebook. Rindo went on to say that if he had shown her the photo right away, it would have been very strange, which is why he tried to get close to her. Zara replied that the plan to turn Rindo into a schoolboy for the sake of finding out information was not very good. Zara looked at Tooru, who couldn't come to his senses, and looked away from the photo he was holding in his hands. She was worried about his condition. Zara comes up behind Tooru and puts her hand on his face first, then hugs him from behind and asks him not to worry. He blushed, as he was surprised by Zara's concern. Tooru carefully turns his head, his cheeks are flushed, and looks into Zara's eyes. She looks at him affectionately and says that she is on his side and he does not need to worry about anything. Tooru tries to gather his strength and say something. The next moment, having freed himself from the embrace, he turns around and says that Haranagi is really frozen in this photo. He wonders why it is in this world. Zara calms him down. Zara explains that if this photo is in the Department of Magic, it does not mean that it is related to ale, that anyone could have put the photo in a notebook. Tooru is still afraid of these options for the appearance of Haranaga's photo in the world of witches and wizards. Zara takes Toru's head in her hands and leans her head against it. She says that she will not let anything bad happen to Haranaga. If necessary, she is ready to do anything to help her. Tooru looks her straight in the eye. Tooru and Zara's face became even closer. She asked Tooru that after her words he was still worried. Zara abruptly recoiled from Tooru, who was sitting on his lap. He was in prostration. Zara was holding a notebook in her hands. She told the wizards that she would confiscate this one. Jermel was outraged by her action. She reminded the sorcerers that they had stolen this notebook. Zara added with a serious face that she would now investigate the case and make sure that nothing happened to Haranaga. Jermel and Rindo were surprised by Zara's words. She waved her finger and the papers with inscriptions and drawings began to move. She handed them to the sorcerers. Jermel did not understand what Zara wanted from them. Against the background of stacks of papers, Zara said that she had agreed with the sorcerers to fulfill 2 conditions. The second condition for them would be to deal with her work. She assigned the sorcerers easy tasks. Jermel got angry again and started threatening Zara. Zara, relieved, spread her hands to the side and said that she had solved the issues here and now it was time for her and Tooru to go home. Tooru followed her. Jermel was beside himself with anger and continued to insult Zara. Ruby carefully studied the papers left by Zara. Jermel, in a panic, did not understand what they should do with all this. Rindo stood silently and looked after the departing Zara and Tooru. Zara leaned her hand against the wall and activated a circular portal to the school where the children studied. Zara and Tooru were already in the school corridor. She had transformed into a human form. She was wearing school clothes. As soon as Rindo broke the silence, he rushed towards the portal. He asked Zara to stop. Rindo crossed the portal. He was all disheveled, wearing only a t-shirt. Beads of sweat were running down his body. Tooru calls Rindo's name. Zara raises her finger towards Rindo and conjures a school uniform on him. She apologizes and says that she completely forgot about Rindo. A school uniform appears on Rindo. He thanks Zara. He needs to learn something completely different. Rindo tells Zara that she cannot let them go so easily. He is interested in what true purpose Zara will pursue. Zara looks at her finger and does not understand Rindo's words. She says that she does not care about them and what happens to them in the future. Tooru was standing behind Zara. She looked away and straightened her tie. She told Rindo that Tooru didn't want to be arrested, and she decided to turn a blind eye for him. He was surprised by Zara's words. In a panic, Rindo said that this was a strange excuse, and most likely this act was related to Toru's desire, which would help remove the curse from her. Zara crossed her arms, turned away, and indifferently replied that anything could be possible. Rindo angrily began to shout that her actions did not correspond at all to her reputation, which never spares criminals. After all, she also refers to herself as an elite who despises losers in all. Tooru was surprised by Rindo's words. Rindo continued that Zara, who considers herself an elite, managed to catch the curse and also spare the sorcerers. How all these actions can help her fulfill Toru's wish. Tooru remembers Zara's good attitude towards him and thinks that Rindo's words may be true. Although Tooru had previously justified Zara's actions by her kindness. But in fact, he did not fully understand what Zara's true motive was to help him. Rindo stood in front of Tooru and Zara. Zara turned away and looked thoughtful. Her hand touched her chin. She pondered the reason why she was helping Tooru so much. The guys waited tensely for Zara's answer. The girl starts talking. With a serious face, she pointed her finger towards Tooru and said that she was doing this because he felt sorry for him. Toru's face and Rindo's face took on distorted grimaces after hearing Zara's words towards Tooru. Zara crossed her arms together, closed her eyes, and said it also hurt her to see how weak and helpless he was. Tooru stood next to Zara and listened to her, with his hands on his chest. Zara imagined a picture with bulls and a mouse and said that Tooru is like a guinea pig, not even like a little mouse among a herd of bulls. If you leave the mouse unattended, it can die, just like Tooru. She is trying to protect him. Rindo snapped and shouted that Zara's stories were too banal to be true. She calmly replied that she was tired of Rindo and that her story might be banal. She didn't see anything wrong with it. Tooru got nervous. He was surprised that Zara had been treating him this way all the time. She coughed and said that at first she was actually annoyed by the fact that Tooru was plain and puny. She went on to say that she was surprised by the fact that he was still able to survive. Tooru thanks Zara for being straightforward. Zara put her hand to her chin again and said that she thinks the guys are too fixated on this. They need to stop paying attention to it, because they have more important problems that need to be solved. Zara starts coughing very hard from the wrong person. She covers her mouth with her hand. The guys came closer to her out of fright. Zara removes her hand from her face and a trickle of blood begins to flow from her nose. Tooru sees this and gets very scared. At this moment, Zara's body stops obeying and she staggers from side to side. Tooru doesn't understand what's going on with Zara. Zara was led away and Tooru rushed to meet her. Rindo stands still and watches the situation. Tooru jumps towards the falling Zara. He finds himself on the floor first and Zara's exhausted body flies at him. She lay on his back, her eyes were open, her body radiated jets of steam. Zara imagines Tooru catching her in the air, saving her from falling, holding her by the waist, and then picking her up altogether. Zara says that the moment has come when she found her prince on a white horse. He says that now is not the right time to talk. Tooru held Zara's stomach with one hand and lifted her behind her back with the other. She began to calm Tooru down and says that there is no need to worry, she just ran out of strength, which she spent too much last time. Tooru loomed over Zara, they looked closely at each other, and Tooru shouted that if she had energy, she would feel much better. Did he understand this moment correctly? Zara's eyes were wide open in surprise. Toru's face was a few centimeters away from her. He took her head in his hands. His mouth was open and intended to kiss Zara to fill her with energy. Zara abruptly puts her hands in front of her and covers Toru's mouth with them. Zara said it was commendable that Tooru had taken the initiative himself, but they couldn't do it right in the school hallway. Tooru didn't understand what was going on. Zara, with blood in her nose, continued to say that her energy is now at the lowest level, and in order for her to be able to move on her own, she will need to give all her energy. Zara didn't want to do that. Zara says it will be unfortunate if she and Tooru are both left exhausted. In that case, Tooru suggests taking Zara home. Tooru took Zara by the arms from behind and began dragging her along the ground, while he was shaking all over from the weight. While Tooru was carrying Zara, she said that they were lucky that their kiss did not take place, otherwise he would have been completely exhausted. Toru was carrying Zara and crying from the weight. Behind Toru, who is carrying Zara, Rindo appears and says that Zara's powers are exhausted to the limit. He felt sorry for it. Zara and Toru looked up at Rindo standing in front of them. He glared at them angrily and said that in this state he could easily defeat Zara. Toru looked at Rindo with fear. Zara agreed with Rindo's statement. Rindo put something on the floor in front of the guys with all his might. It was a piece of paper with magic symbols and inscriptions painted on it. Toru jerked in surprise. Zara watched with indifference. Toru put Zara between his legs and wrapped his arms around her. Rindo held out a piece of paper to Toru and said that he should put his hand on the piece of paper that he gave him and then presented the place where Toru would like to be. Rindo told him not to delay. Rindo's hand was on a piece of paper with symbols, and Toru's hand reached out to him. He put his hand on the piece of paper and said that he would like to be in his room. Toru holds Zara with one hand, with the other he holds a piece of paper which was also touched by Rindo. A bright light appears around the guys and they are transported to Toru's room. There was a chair, a shelf on which books were lying. Toru was delighted. Zara was put on the bed, her head was on the pillow and she was covered with a blanket. Toru was sitting next to Zara. Rindo was in the doorway and said that Toru should not worry. As soon as Zara sleeps, she will feel much better. Toru gets up, walks up to Rindo and says that he is grateful to him and he could never have thought that Rindo would help them. Rindo was standing in front of Toru, his hands in his pockets. Rindo looked at Toru with an unflappable gaze and said that Zara had let them go then, and now he was in debt to her. Rindo was interested in one more question that he would like to ask Toru. Rindo asked what was the reason he and Zara were so interested in Haranagi Tsumugi. Toru blushed, sweated all over, and a silly smile appeared on his face. Rindo went on to say that at first it seemed to him that they had the same reasons as them. But when they saw the photo, they were very surprised, so it turns out that the matter is different. Could it be that it has something to do with Toru's desire? Toru told Rindo everything. Rindo started screaming in surprise. He didn't understand why Toru had made such a wish for Dawn. It would have been easier if Toru had made a lot of money or something like that. It seemed to Toru that he had heard this somewhere before. An image of Zara popped up in Rindo's mind, and he began to think that her image was popping up in his head too often. Rindo said that he shouldn't think about it at all, but since this is a wish for Zara, it turned out to be fair that it turned out to be so difficult. Rindo apologized for his overly emotional and violent behavior. Toru replied that it was okay. The guys were sitting at the table. Rindo thought about it and said again that Zara had said that Toru did not want Rindo to be arrested. Rindo was interested in the reason for Toru's behavior because he was an obstacle in achieving the fulfillment of his desire. Rindo spoke viciously that maybe Toru has a bad plan to use it for selfish purposes. Toru denied Rindo's words. Toru lowered his head down, his gaze was directed at the table, and he said that it would be difficult for him to explain this, but he really did not want Rindo to be caught. Toru blushed, looked away, crumpled his trousers with his hand, gathered his strength and said, looking into Rindo's face, that he wanted to become a friend to Rindo. Toru and Rindo were sitting at the table. Rindo had one hand on the table. When Toru told me that he wanted to become a friend of Rindo, he was greatly surprised by these words. His face distorted, his eyebrows furrowed, his mouth opened in surprise. Rindo didn't understand what Toru really wanted from him. Toru began to convince Rindo that he was not joking and offered to be friends in all seriousness. Toru lowered his gaze and timidly began to say that he hadn't had any friends since he was little. Toru thought it was normal. The people around him couldn't be his friends since they didn't even notice him. Rindo listened to him in surprise. Rindo also put his other hand on the table and asked about Harunaga. Toru replied that she only cares about him because she is kind. Hoda, he and Harunaga have known each other since elementary school, but they hardly played with each other. Toru said with a smile on his face that Harunaga has many friends and is a friend to everyone. The guys remembered how Harunaga is constantly surrounded by people. Rindo was confused and agreed with Toru's words. Toru interrupted his conversation thinking about something. Toru broke the silence and said that maybe it was his selfish desire, but if Rindo was arrested, then the guys would not be able to see each other again. Toru wouldn't want that to happen. Rindo calmly listened to Toru. Toru began to feel embarrassed again and looked away from Rindo. Toru said that Zara and Rindo are the first people Toru can talk to like that. Even if Rindo is not human, Toru does not want him to disappear. Rindo looked at Toru in surprise and was silent. At that moment, while Toru and Rindo were sitting at the table and talking about friendship, Zara was standing in the open doorway and quietly eavesdropping on their conversation. Rindo's face changed. He remembered the words of other wizards who had opened up to be friends with him since he was not a strong sorcerer. After the flashbacks, Rindo bared his smile and laughed. Rindo covered his face with his hand and leaned on it. Then Rindo said that they were just talking, but Toru already cares so much about him. Everyone who spends time with Toru becomes weird just like Zara. Toru looked up at Rindo. Rindo's hand was still on his face. He started getting angry and asking Toru that he wanted to get along with wizards, that Toru wanted to be a friend to him. Toru jerked in fright when he heard Rindo's scream and questions. Rindo removes his hand from his face. The atmosphere has heated up. His face has changed a lot, his eyes have become angry, his teeth have become sharper and bigger. He said that Toru does not even know what he really looks like. Toru was even more scared. Rindo did not take his eyes off Toru. He said that if Toru wants to play friends, then he should do it with other people, and wizards will never be able to get along with people. Rindo went on to say that this is all happening because the world of humans and sorcerers is very different. Toru did not take his eyes off Rindo. Toru remembered Zara's appearance when she transforms into a witch and thought about the words that those who live in another world should have nothing to do with them. Toru clenched his hands that were on his lap. He agreed with Rindo's words. Toru, sitting on a chair, lowered his head to the bottom and said that it could not be that such an invisible person like him could get along with such influential people. Toru remembers Zara's appearance again. The hero starts shouting that Rindo should forget about the impossible. After all, Toru's wish is that he wants to stop being invisible. Toru kept shouting that he had to reach a level where he could make friends with witches and warlocks. Rindo silently pushed away from the table. He was shocked by Toru's behavior and words. Zara was still standing in the doorway listening to them. Toru gets up from his chair and leans with both hands on the table. He says he will do everything in his power to get along with Rindo. Rindo gets up from his chair, shocked by Toru's behavior and persistence. Toru began to say that, imagining all sorts of forms of Rindo in his head, he imagined the appearance of a giant, various monsters, and even the appearance of a beautiful girl. Rindo asked Toru to stop. His words made it even harder for him to show his appearance. Rindo started pointing his finger at Tora and shouting that it made no sense for them to establish a relationship, since Zara would take care of the photo, and now it made no sense for Rindo to attend their school anymore. Toru was scared by Rindo's screams. Toru fell to his knees in fright and was shaking. He said that Rindo might be right about something. At that moment, Rindo wanted to leave the room. After leaving the room, Rindo bumps into Zara. He gets scared. Zara asks Rindo that he really won't go to school anymore. Zara had a reddened face and was wearing a shirt that was too big for her. Rindo said her name in surprise. He didn't come alive to see her in the hallway. Zara covered her face with her hand and said that she thought it was normal for two similar people to get along with each other. Rindo wondered what he and Toru looked like. Zara said they were both insecure and afraid of everything. Rindo was furious, angered by Zara's words. Zara blushed and looked down at the floor. She said that she doesn't understand the feelings that Toru feels and it would be great if he had a friend like Rindo. Rindo looked at Zara indignantly and said that people like Toru and him should stay in place. Zara looked up at Rindo and said no, it was Rindo's problem. Rindo had a small piece of paper in his hands, on which magic circles and inscriptions were drawn. He looked at this piece of paper and thought what he needed to do, but he was not the one who had to decide anything. Toru runs into the corridor where Zara and Rindo were. He asks Rindo to stop, but Rindo activates his magic and disappears. The place where Rindo was standing was emitting flashes of light. Toru notices Zara, who should be in bed and asleep right now. He is surprised by her presence in the hallway. She says she couldn't sleep because he and Rindo were talking too loudly. Toru was surprised that Zara had heard their conversation. Toru apologized to Zara and told her that he had told Rindo everything without her consent. Zara replied that Toru had nothing to apologize for. She continued that she didn't care who Toru was friends with. He needed to do as he liked. Toru was embarrassed, looked away from Zara and looked at the floor. He then said that he thought they couldn't be friends. Zara looked at Tora and asked him to sit in front of her. He came closer and obeyed her request. Zara then gently puts her hand on Toru's head. He is startled by the surprise. Zara smilingly said that it didn't matter if she and Rindo could be friends or not. She was sincerely glad that Toru was able to say what he wanted without fear. Zara's face shone even more with joy, and she went on to say that at least Rindo doesn't think of Toru as an invisible man, which is a great success. Toru was speechless and sweating profusely. Zara's hand was still on his head. Zara said it would be nice if Toru could hit Haranaga just as quickly. Toru said in a panic that it was impossible to do so yet. It was a sunny day. Toru was in class. He was sitting at his desk and looking out the window. It was very noisy around him from the conversation of classmates. Looking out the window, Toru recalled how Zara was lying in bed. She couldn't go to school because her strength hadn't recovered yet. Toru was thinking about her and worried about her condition. Toru's thoughts were also busy with Rindo. He was wondering if he would come to school after what happened to them. Toru was distracted from his thoughts when someone called his name and greeted him, and Toru nodded in surprise. It was Rindo in his school uniform. His shirt was unbuttoned. He was looking at Tora. He was surrounded by girls on all sides. After a moment, Toru realized that Rindo was greeting him, and he jumped up from his seat in delight and shouted Rindo's name. Rindo looked towards Toru, then he asked the girl standing in front of him, who was blocking the passage, to step aside since he wants to talk to Toru. Rindo was moving towards Toru with a stern face. Toru and Rindo were standing in the classroom. Rindo approached him closely. Toru nervously fingered his hands, smiled, and looked at Rindo. None of the guys dared to speak first. Toru spoke to Rindo first. He was glad that Rindo had come to school. Toru told him about it. Rindo replied that he had not returned to school again for Toru's sake. Rindo made a displeased face. He remembered the boss's order, which said that Rindo should return to school and continue to spy on Zara. Toru smiled stupidly and continued listening to Rindo. Toru's face broke into a smile even more, and he said that he was still very glad to see Rindo back at school. Rindo looked at Toru suspiciously, then he nervously looked away. Rindo turned around and started walking away from Toru, but decided to say anyway that the holidays were already starting tomorrow. Rindo still did not look at Toru and continued to say that he had previously talked to Haranagi about the holidays. She replied that she had no plans for them. Toru looked at Rindo in surprise and listened further. Toru waited for the conversation with Rindo to continue, but he stood like a demigod and remained silent. So some time passed. Before Rindo spoke, he grabbed Toru's shoulders with his hands. Rindo's face took on an ominous look. Toru was startled by surprise and continued to stand motionless. Rindo's face became even more sinister. He loomed over Toru, and he shouted in a whisper that he should ask Haranagi out on a date somewhere. Toru fell into a state of shock from what he heard. His eyes widened in surprise. At that moment, without waiting for Toru's answer, Rindo calls Haranagi to them and says that Toru wants to tell her something. Haranaga was chatting with the other girls and turned to Rindo. Toru was sweating all over from nerves. Toru whispered to Rindo that there was no way he could ask Haranaga out on a date. It was too sudden. Rindo shouted back in a whisper that until Toru starts showing signs of attention from the relationship, they will not change. Toru didn't understand what was going on with Rindo. Rindo was still in a bad mood. He turned around and started walking away from Toru. Toru thought that Rindo probably just wanted to help him with Haranagi and a date with her. He thought he couldn't miss this chance to go on a date that Rindo had helped him with. Haranagi slowly approached Toru. Haranaga approached Toru with a cheerful and smiling expression and asked what he wanted from her. Toru was confused and began to stutter with excitement. He gathered his courage and said that he had heard that Haranaga had no plans for the holidays. Haranagi stood in front of Rindo and agreed with his words. Toru continued to say with great difficulty that she would not mind if he came tomorrow. On a nervous basis, Toru stopped talking. Toru was covered in sweat from head to toe and looked down at the floor. He began to think about how he should ask the girl out on a date. Panic seized him. He could not calm down in any way. Toru imagines how, with a smile on his face, he will go on a date with Haranaga. But there was an internal struggle going on inside. He didn't want to lie to Haranagi, and at the same time he thought that how could he ask her out even though they are not a couple. Toru was completely lost in thought. He thought that even if they went on a date, what would they do on it? How far could they go? They should have a date nearby so that she wouldn't waste her time. Toru gathers his thoughts and with force and shouts out that Haranaga did not want to study for exams with him in the school library. Rindo is standing behind Toru and is very angry at what he heard. Rindo shouts in a whisper to Toru that if he is asking a girl out, then he needs to come up with something more suitable than a library. After that, Rindo thinks that Toru's plan cannot be planned. If you think about it, then Rindo himself knows little about dating girls, especially about dating a human girl. Haranaga put her hand on her chin. She looked away. Her look was very thoughtful. After considering the offer, she broke into a smile and said that instead of the library, they could go to some cafe where they could talk and get something to eat. Toru blushed and was delighted. He thought that Haranaga's proposal was something that could just be like a date. Haranaga got nervous and said they could go there if Toru wanted to. Toru replied that he agreed and offered to go to a cafe was a better option. Haranaga took out her phone and showed Toru the cafe. Toru agreed with her choice. The guys agreed to meet there. Rindo stood by and thought it looked like Haranagi was asking Toru out, not the other way around. Haranaga said that she and Toru haven't walked together since they were little, the last time they walked in the park. She is looking forward to this walk with Toru. Toru was taken aback by what had happened and agreed with Haranaga. After the conversation, Haranaga left, and finally she helped Toru with her hand. He waved back at her. Rindo stood behind Toru, his arms crossed in displeasure and his expression left much to be desired. Abruptly, Toru turns to Rindo in a panic and says that he does not believe that he is actually dating Haranagi. Rindo replied that yes, he was happy for Toru, but still the decision was left to Haranagi. Toru was so worried that it was hard for him to breathe. He said that he was happy, but he was not sure that he was ready for this. Toru said that it reminded him that Zara would not be able to recover tomorrow. Rindo was surprised that Toru remembered Zara. Rindo didn't understand. He asked Toru why he needed Zara, because he was going on his date with Haranaga. Rindo looked at Toru standing in front of him, who was shaking with emotion, and said that Toru should not tell him that if Zara did not appear on a date with him tomorrow, then he would worry. Toru thought about it and told Rindo that he might be right. Such an outcome of events could also happen. Rindo frowned at Toru and listened to him. Toru shouted that being able to survive a first date without Zara's presence would help him show Zara in a more positive light. Toru kept saying that Toru would force Zara to level him up from a mouse to a golden hamster. Rindo replied, "If you compare the two animals, they will both fit in your hand," whether Toru really wants to associate himself with a hamster. At that time, Zara was lying in bed with her eyes open. She could not fall asleep because she felt that someone was talking about her. It was a sunny morning, birds were singing outside the window. The alarm clock on the phone was ringing and vibrating. It was 8 in the morning. Toru slightly opened his eyes from the ringing of the alarm clock. His head was lying on the pillow. His hair was disheveled. He was wearing a dark t-shirt. Toru started stretching on the bed. His eyes were still closed. He was trying to wake up. His hand slipped onto the next pillow, and he began stroking his hair on his head. Toru opened his eyes to understand whose hair he was stroking. His hand wrapped around the entire head lying next to him. Zara was lying next to him. She was wearing a light t-shirt. Toru lay and looked at Zara. Her eyes were closed. She continued to sleep. He stroked her hair and admired her. They lay there for a while, Toru's hand still on Zara's hair. After a while, Toru comes up with the idea of how he and Zara ended up in the same bed and why they sleep together. Toru's hand continues to be on Zara's hair. Toru remembered how in the evening he and Zara were in his room. They were standing by the bed and Toru said that she could sleep in his bed and he would lie down on the couch. Zara said that Toru needed to rest, as he had a date with Haranagi tomorrow. Toru and Zara argued about this for a long time. Zara offered them to sleep together. Toru tried to refuse her, but she made him fall asleep with the help of magic and eventually lay down with him. Toru was indignant at such a senseless waste of magical power. Zara opened her eyes a little. She began to wake up. Toru noticed this and wished her good morning and lifted his hand, which was lying on her hair. Zara ignored his words, closed her eyes and mumbled something. Then Zara opened her eyes again, noticing Toru's hand and looked at her. She took Toru's hand and hugged it, then hugged it and laid her face on his palm and squeezed it tightly. Toru loomed over her. He was in shock and didn't know what to do next. After a while, a heart-rending scream sounded throughout the house where the guys were. It could even be heard on the street. Zara woke up. She was very scared by Toru's scream. She did not understand why he was so strong and suddenly began to scream. He held one hand on his reddened face. He held the other in the air. It was shaking. He couldn't say anything clearly. Toru and Zara moved into a different room. Toru told Zara that he could help her restore her magical powers if she wanted to. Zara covered her mouth, she yawned, and replied that she was fine and did not dare to bother him. Toru took the frying pan in his hands and said that he would cook for her. Most likely Toru would appear at home later in the evening. If Zara got hungry, she would wash off a snack. Zara was unhappy that Toru considered her a child who was left alone at home. Toru nervously rubbed his hands. He said that he would be less nervous if he did anything. Zara waved her hand towards Toru and said that first of all he needed to get ready for the upcoming date. Toru left the room. Zara turns around and a sealed bread for toast falls into her field of vision. She thought about it and began to put the prepared bread toasts, and next to them on a plate there are fried eggs with sausages for breakfast. Zara went to the microwave and said that she might not be able to use magic, but she could still do so much. The microwave made a noise. Zara stood next to the microwave, then she looked at the high-hanging kitchen cabinets. Zara thought about it. She tried to reach the locker, but still it was too high and Zara couldn't reach it. Suddenly someone put their hands on Zara's shoulders. She was scared. It was Toru. One of his hands was on Zara's shoulder. With the other hand he was taking dishes from the upper cabinets, which Zara could not reach. She stood motionless. Toru took out a mug and asked Zara with a smile if she wanted to get it out of the locker. Zara held the mug Toru handed her with both hands, and she thanked him. Toru moved the dishes to the lower cabinet to make it easier for Zara. Zara stood blinking and said nothing. Zara put a plate of toast and a cup on the table. She clarified that Toru had prepared everything for the date. He stood next to me and said that everything was in place: wallet, pencil case, textbooks, and notebooks. Zara looked at Tooru with displeasure and said that the ones he took were not needed at all on a date. Tooru excused himself by saying that he and Haranagi were just going to a cafe to study for exams. Tooru said confusedly that Haranaga didn't think of their meeting as a date. Zara replied that it doesn't matter where they go, the main thing is that together, and the fact that Tooru took the initiative is very impressive. Tooru said that it was Rindo who pushed him to do this. If he had not helped Tooru, this would not have happened. Tooru was holding a bag in his hands. Zara said after Toru's words that it was Rindo's interference that annoyed her. Tooru did not hear Zara's words and asked again. She refused to repeat her words. Zara said that time had already run out and started to escort Tora out on a date. He was leaving in a hurry. Tooru thought about something and stopped. Then he turns to face Zara and says that he will do everything in his power and asked her to believe in him. Zara stared after Tor in surprise. Tooru was standing in the doorway. Zara said goodbye and wished him a good day. She waved her hand after him. Tooru thanked her and wished her a good day too. The door slammed shut. Zara stood motionless and looked towards the door. Her hand, which she waved to Tor, remained motionless in the air. Then Zara turned around and went into the room. She fell on the sofa and sighed, then she thought about something. Zara remembered how Tooru reached for the dishes that she couldn't get, then how Tooru was embarrassed and asked her to believe in him. She was embarrassed and blushed. Zara picked up the phone and started making calls. She called Rindo. Rindo's phone was on the table in the room, and there were sheets of paper with images of magical inscriptions and symbols everywhere in the room. The hooded man picked up the phone. It was Rindo. He answered the call and put the phone to his ear. Zara greeted Rindo on the other end of the line. Rindo was startled by the voice he heard. He did not expect to hear Zara. Rindo was so scared that he screamed and dropped his phone from his hands. Another person sensed in the room and did not understand what was happening to Rindo. Rindo was surprised that Zara had his phone number. Zara calmly replied that Rindo shouldn't worry about it. The second person in the room with Rindo was Ruby. He sat on the floor and waited for Rindo to finish talking on the phone. Zara asked that while she was away, Rindo did whatever he wanted. Rindo guessed that Zara was referring to his involvement in Toru's date. Rindo asked Zara that he needed to ask Zara's permission to do anything, even if Toru was happy about it. She agreed with his words. Zara asked what Rindo's goal was to help Tor with the date. Rindo didn't understand what Zara wanted from him. He was determined to end the conversation. But Zara asked him to wait. Zara's face changed. It took on a sinister smile, and she said that there was no way she could miss Toru's precious first date. Zara cheered up noticeably and said that she would go to watch Toru and Haranaga's date, and invited Rindo to go with her. Rindo is surprised by Dara's words. He held the phone to his ear and looked in surprise at Ruby standing next to him. Two schoolchildren were walking along the road and discussing taking exams next week, and they were glad that they could go home early when they noticed someone. A female figure appeared in front of them. It was Sazerashi, whose appearance immediately confused the guys. One of them called out to the girl, wanting to hear something from her in response, but his friend knew the character of Sazerashi and tried to stop his friend from further actions. He knew that she would either ignore him or despise him if she was called out, but the guys couldn't help but admit that the girl was beautiful. Sazerashi saw them, and for a short while she looked at them unhappily. There was a slight puzzlement in her eyes. Then the girl smiled back at them. The guys were stunned by her reaction, and as she continued on her way, still smiling, they assumed that the girl had a split personality or a twin sister or just a good mood. Someone was waiting around the corner of Sazerashi and attracted her attention, beckoning her to come over. In the next second, the witch in one of her guises attacked the girl on the knee, which she did not quite expect. Addressing the girl as Rindo, she asked him to approach the matter as perfectly as possible since he was going to do it. Otherwise, she might have problems. The witch Zara explained that someone might have suspicions if the identity she created changed, but Rindo only complained that it was her fault. Discarding other thoughts, the guy asked about the probable motives of Zara's actions. She said that the upcoming important event could be the moment when the curse would be lifted, and for everything to go well, the witch had to keep an eye on the main character, as the one who fulfills the Torah's wish. But now the girl was in the form of a child, and if she wandered alone it would stand out a lot, which is why she asked Rindo to become her guardian, which he could not understand. He was sure that he could be him in the image of himself. But Zara explained that she would not have to come up with excuses when they were seen together if two relatives were seen, which could not arouse any suspicion. The witch couldn't help but remind him that she was able to easily control Rindo's actions after she found out his weakness, which he was angry at, seeing how they looked down on him. But changing the subject, the guy invited Zara to watch the main character's date. to which she shared information about the place where Mugura and Haranaga were supposed to meet. It was to this place that they approached when they noticed that Toro was pinned down by a large man, the sight of which greatly surprised Rindo. The girl explained that it was not difficult to understand everything that was happening. It was obvious. The main character was sitting on a bench, and a giant was sitting on him, but this was what the witch's friend focused on. She assumed that Toro sat on the bench because he still had time before meeting Tsumugi, but Rindo could not believe that this man sat on the hero because he did not notice him, wondering at the ability of Toru's trouble to dull the nerves of the skin. The guy suggested that it would be very awkward if Haranaga saw her friend in this form, but the witch was sure that this view had been known to her for a long time. But Zara admitted that it wouldn't be cool if Tsumugi started helping Toru out from the very beginning of the date. So she announced that Rindo had a chance to do something before the girl came. Also, in response to his surprise, the witch suggested that it was Rindo who did not want such a date to be ruined, because he was the initiator of this situation. The next second, while Toru was still pinned down, a beautiful girl walked past them, which attracted the attention of a huge man, and he turned to look at her. The woman was beaming from head to toe as she cast a brief glance in the direction of the giant, but his heart was already completely charmed, which caused him to stand up with a bang in the direction of the girl. While the man stopped in the middle of the street trying to find her, Rindo returned to the witch, enthusiastically asking for her opinion on his actions, which she praised. Toru, feeling saved, was staggering forward a little more, not paying attention to the road, when he suddenly collided with the girl's chest. Tsumugi was only a little surprised, and asked if the main character himself was okay, while he, before he had time to wake up, blushed greatly from the situation in which he found himself. A couple of seconds later, he rarely pulled away from Haranaga, apologizing to her for his actions, but she only asked him to tell her if he suddenly felt unwell. But the young man noted that he does not often leave the house, so he was a little nervous about it. Tsumugi was a little surprised but asked him not to be so restrained because after all they were just going to go to school. The next moment she took his hand, which surprised not only the hero himself but also Zara and Rindo. The girl pulled him, offering to continue on her way, and at this time the witch pursed her lips thinking about something. Tsumugi enthusiastically dragged Toru by the hand while he hesitantly trailed after her, surprised that she took his hand. Zara and Rindo were also surprised by this fact. To their surprise, there was simply no chapel. None of them seemed to have expected this. But while the man was trying to figure out why it happened, the witch already knew how it really was. She pointed in the direction of the couple, drawing Rindo's attention to the fact that they were walking through the crowd. And after a few moments, the guy in the image of Sazerashi finally understood. Confirming his thoughts, Zara noted that passersby did not bypass Muguru, and so that he would not walk alone, encountering every person from the crowd. Haranaga took his hand and walked ahead while Rindo sympathized with the hard life of the hero. The witch noticed that although she was pleased with the care of her friend Thora for him, it would be difficult for the young man to show himself on the good side. A little later, the couple approached the cafe when the main character remembered something that he had forgotten, being carried away by a walk with Haranaga. He remembered that it was extremely difficult for him to go to any ordinary cafe. It was common for him to have an order not taken from him, and he could not even find a place for himself because he was not noticed at the entrance, which is why he went to the cafe only with his family. However, remembering Zara's words, the young man pulled himself together and was sure that he had changed, and that he would be able to find a place for himself when he decisively opened the doors of the institution. But a failure awaited him. The staff did not even notice him and turned to Tsumugi. The waitress asked the girl if she needed a table for one. The girl said that she was not alone and asked for a table for two, to which she was puzzled to be offered a place at the end of the cafe. The waiter was perplexed, not understanding who Haranaga meant when she said that she was not alone, which is why the main character was sure that he was seen only as a spirit or something like that. Toru apologized to his girlfriend for making her look like she was communicating with a ghost, but the girl immediately calmed him down, asking him not to worry. Zara and Rindo were watching them at the time. The guy said that Thor was completely desperate, and in response to the witch's explanation that it was difficult to notice if you did not believe in his existence, he did not understand why it was hard to see the young man. Rindo also noted that he clearly saw how the hero came in, which Zara turned her attention to. She said that it was because of the work done by Thor, which her interlocutor did not understand. A little later in a conversation, Mugura noted that he was hopeless, and that despite the fact that he had recently thought about how he had become more visible, it turned out that he had not grown at all in this business. A moment later, the hero suddenly noticed that he was complaining about strange things and apologized to Tsumugi, being unhappy that he remained pessimistic despite being alone with Haranaga. The girl just kept silent and smiled kindly at the hero, trying to defuse the situation and not let the hero fall into despair. She was not angry with him. She noted that if becoming more noticeable could be called growth, then Tooru definitely grew up, and also clarified that she honestly did not try to comfort the hero. Tsumugi remembered that for some time now, when Rindo entered the classroom, he was heading directly towards Mugura, and not as before. First he looked at the seating chart to find him. She didn't know exactly what had happened, but she was sure that since Rindo had noticed the young man, he must have tried a lot. She thought that the hero had definitely grown up and urged him not to get upset. Thus, the girl expressed support for the young man. Because of her words, Tooru was very surprised. The young man did not expect to hear such words from a girl. At this moment, Haranaga, noting that the guy had tried before, considered it important, and then offered to order something once they came to the cafe, bringing Tooru out of his stupor. Zara watched his agitation from afar, and after a while she asked Rindo about Tsumuga. Looking into the future, the witch suggested that Haranaga might already have fallen in love with the young man, which meant that Toru's wish would have been fulfilled even if the witch had left him alone. After thinking about the question for a while, Rindo said without a doubt that he would not have made any statements at that time. The witch was surprised by his confidence, because like her, Rindo should have seen them holding hands. But the man in the image of a girl explained that Haranaga behaved this way only because of the problem of Toru's invisibility. Rindo, on the orders of his boss, had studied with Tsumugi since high school and knew the girl much better than Zara. He shared that Haranaga was kind to everyone, which earned everyone's love and made many friends. It might even seem to someone that she fell in love with them because of how nice she was to them. These cases were frequent. Rindo noted that their hopes were hopeless because Haranaga was kind to everyone. This, in turn, meant that no one was special to her, and she could take care of Tooru more than others because of his invisibility. But this did not mean that she was not indifferent to him. Rindo, sipping a drink from a straw, also added that to understand Tsumuga's real feelings, it was not enough to see only her kindness, because this was one of her main features. Having looked at the interlocutor haplessly, the witch was surprised. Moreover, there was no limit to her surprise. She was so impressed by how perceptive he was, and decided to order him something delicious. Looking at the cafe menu, the witch understood the meaning of the word special in this situation, decided that she needed to learn more about Haranaga. An image of an old photograph popped into her head, the truth of which bothered her when someone approached their table. It was Tsumugi who, despite Rindo's fright, immediately recognized them as Sazerashi and Zara. Rindo realized how much they were distracted by the conversation that they did not even notice how the girl approached them. But fortunately, their presence had not yet been noticed by Tooru himself, who was diligently studying. Rindo said that their meeting in this cafe was a big coincidence. He tried to put on as friendly a smile as possible. At the same time, panicking, Yunsha was thinking about what they should do because he risked exposing himself. At that moment, Zara spoke up. She noted the lucky coincidence because she just wanted to talk to Haranaga. Tsumugi answered Zara's request to talk. She agreed, but Tooru was waiting for her, so she didn't want to waste much time. After taking a closer look, the witch asked the girl what she thought about Mugger. Rindo, in the image of a girl, was surprised by how simply and abruptly Zara got right to the point, while Tsumugi was thinking about what to say. But her thoughts were short-lived. She replied that Tooru was her precious friend, while completely not thinking about the answer, which stunned the interlocutors. She was also sure that the girls sitting at the table, with whom she was having a dialogue, thought similarly to her, and assured them that they could not worry about Tooru. Haranaga also added that she would not tell the young man that she had seen them in a cafe. She was smiling as she said this. And then, looking down, the girl said that she was happy that they cherished the Torah. At these words, the witch's gaze became prickly. Under the vague gaze of the witch, the girl retreated back when Rindo offered to get rid of her instead of trying to reason with her with such a protective parental attitude. After thinking about the situation a little, Zara agreed with Rindo's arguments, but it still didn't fit into her head. But the next moment, the witch looked at the happily chatting couple. She carefully studied the atmosphere around them. In the end, she decided that they should have fun that day, so she didn't want to bother them and offered Rindo a cake, which surprised him. Sometime later, Tsumugi thanked the young man for the invitation to take a walk, but he only worriedly reminded her that she was the one who took care of him and even helped with his studies. But she said she did it of her own free will. Before saying goodbye, the girl mentioned that they were studying that day because exams would soon begin. She then added that next time she would like them to just take a walk together. This request did not immediately reach Thor, but when he realized it, he was immediately shocked and blushed. Then he hurriedly agreed to his girlfriend's proposal, after which they went home. Mugura walked towards his house thinking about how Tsumugi said they could hang out together again, and thought that despite the likely bunch of mistakes, everything went pretty well. Sometime later, Zara was waiting for the hero at home, who assumed from the threshold that everything had gone just terribly. The young man was stunned because he didn't even have time to say anything, but the witch could understand everything without even asking. She assumed that Tooru wanted to look cool, but instead walked in circles and was stressed. And she could easily imagine how Haranaga comforted him every now and then along the way. These words of hers hit Muguru in the sick, but in fact she saw everything. The next thing Zara said was that his idea of the boy to show himself on the good side and that he had grown up was fundamentally wrong, which surprised the hero. The girl explained that if the feelings they were experiencing were important to them, then they did not need to pretend to be cool when they were having fun together or they were happy, but just be themselves. But the witch did not end there. She added that if a person like Tooru demonstrates that he has grown up, this can only cause a feeling of maternal joy at the success of his son, and not deep emotions. The young man was depressed after hearing this. In the end, after thinking about it, he decided that making their date better was a terrible idea. Mugura understood that the only thing that should have mattered was Haranaga's feelings, but at that time he was only thinking about himself. Zara, after considering his words, explained that she only wanted the hero to think about it and not beat around the bush, and also added that in any case the date was not to please Tsumugi. The witch sat down and asked the hero if he had fun, after which, having replayed the events of the past day in his head, Tooru replied positively. He also shared that Haranaga had invited him to go out again and hoped that he would succeed next time. Hearing this, Zara smiled and decided that it was a good coincidence, with which the young man happily agreed. The witch was also aware of the whole situation and promised to do everything possible to make Thor's wish come true. After hearing this, he remembered the witch's problem and worried if everything would be okay with her regaining her magic power. The girl, remembering how sweetly Mugura and Haranaga talked, decided that she had had enough for that day. And besides, it was Sunday ahead. At the same time, somewhere in a dark room, a group of witches were discussing that they had recently seen Zara, and one of them confirmed that she was indeed cursed. That witch was Zara's boss, and she thought late that she probably shouldn't have talked about it. But anyway, she wanted one of the witches, Naku, to do something for her. But at that moment, there was no one in front of her, and Naku herself, stamping loudly, could not believe that Zara was cursed, but she realized that it was a chance if it turned out to be true. She turned to her servant Gilsh, asking him if he knew why this was a chance for them. After a little thought, he said that Naku could fulfill a wish instead of Zara, and she, freed from the curse, would be in debt to them, which hit right on the bullseye. The witch stroked the servant's cheeks, noting that he was beautiful, and told him that, although it would be nice to make Zara her debtor, she wanted to do the opposite. Thus, Nakul planned to make sure that the hero's wish did not come true, and the curse did not disappear, by taking what the person who caught Zara wanted, and then she will become a half-accomplished witch at the level of a small fry. On that note, Naku announced that they were going to the human world to track down the man who brought the curse on their colleague, as well as prove to everyone that she was better than Zara. At that moment, Thor noticed how the witch next to him trembled. Silence fell in Toru's house. Zara pressed the hero against the wall, sitting on top of him on the bed, and put her hands on his shoulder. The witch kissed the boy, which almost startled him. The kiss lasted a long time, which was very embarrassing for the guy, and only moments later Zara let go of Thora. At the same moment, the girl's body shape changed. She became many times older, and particles of magic hovered around her, and even her eyes shone. The witch was examining how she looked, noting that it had been a long time since she had been in this form, while Mugura was extremely embarrassed by her appearance without pants. While the young man was still confused, Zara was glad that she had finally found the time to restore the magic. Tooru thought for a while and spoke awkwardly. He noted that he appreciated the witch's care for her, and asked her not to hesitate to ask if she suddenly needed recovery, because he was ready to help at any time. Zara looked at him briefly, mockingly asked if he missed her in such a form, once again embarrassing the guy. The hero hastily denied that he was bored when the girl asked if he wanted to kiss again at the same time, but Tooru was against that too. He explained that he just wanted Zara to make a full recovery, so that there would be no more recent incidents. But the witch calmed him down, explaining that there was nothing to worry about because she herself did not want to completely exhaust her strength, at least until she got into a fight with some magician, as it had been up to that moment. At that moment, the phone suddenly rang, which startled Thora with its melody. It was Verita, her boss, who called Zara's number, annoying the owner of the phone, while Mugura was surprised by the girl's ringtone. The witch answered the call. She gradually calmly answered the interlocutor's questions, but one of them drove the girl out of herself for a second. When Mugura asked her if something had happened, Zara told him that they were planning a small skirmish with the magicians, which the young man did not immediately understand. Sometime later, in one of the points of the city, a portal appeared behind the building, in which there were silhouettes of people. The witch Nakul and her assistant Gilsh came out of the sparkling black portal. Naku immediately applied appearance-changing magic on herself. Thanks to this, in a second the girl was already dressed in a school uniform and ready to go to an educational institution. The building near which the portal appeared was a school. The witch shared this information with Gilsh, adding also that it was in this place that the person who cursed Zara should have been. Naku ordered the servant to find this boy and bring him to her so that she would find out what his wish was. At that time, they were being watched from around the corner. Zara and Tooru found the enemies before they could, and Mugura was interested in his partner about the identity of the unknown. The witch said that one of them was her colleague Naku, who controlled her own familiar. The girl also explained that they were both in a quarrel, and she was sure that she wanted to prevent Thor from fulfilling his wish, which he did not expect in any way. Zara added that the newcomers to this world knew much more about magic than the recent Garm company, and said that she did not want to conflict with her colleague, hoping for the hero's invisibility. But in the next second, dark magic appeared behind them. She began to reach out like a paw towards the hero, who by that time still did not suspect anything. As a result, the paw grabbed the Torah. With the help of magic, Gilsh captured the Torah with one of his hands, which Zara did not even immediately notice. She looked back and saw how Naku's servant was holding her partner in his long arm, while exuding a magical shadow under his feet. Nakul approached them, telling them that Verita had already shared that they were an extremely inconspicuous couple, but added that she could always look for sounds and smells to find them, which they did, taking Zara's scent. Upon hearing this, the witch looked at Gilsh accusingly. She assumed that he was a man of peculiar hobbies because he was the one who smelled her, but when she heard this, Naku was very indignant. She explained that she just made him remember the smell of Zara's personal belongings, which seemed even more strange to her, not understanding where they even got her personal belongings from. Nakul said that the girl left magic tools and a bag on her desk, which was a gift for which she never returned, so Naku brought them to her. After she thanked them, Zara suggested that they return back, but her interlocutor was opposed, because she believed that she would do a favor to a colleague by returning at that moment. But Nakul decided to make it clear what kind of situation Tooru and his partner actually found themselves in. The girl is capturing a guy with the help of magic in a huge shadow ball. Dark energy enveloped the guy from head to toe. Suddenly, a ball of dark energy closed around Toru's body, and Zara's face expressed shock and great surprise. Zara did not expect such an outcome of events when the boy disappeared into the unknown shadow space of Gilsh. Naku mocked her colleague, believing that it was a shame to lose someone who was dear, and announced that she would let him go only if Zara told about Mugura's desire. But in the next second, the witch trembled. Gilsh also instantly stood up for the lady. Zara was absolutely furious that someone had dared to take the Torah from her, which stunned Nakul, because she had never seen such a reaction from a colleague before, and probably expected a completely different outcome of events. A heavy silence hung between Zara and Gilshem and Nakul, who kept their distance. Naku was surprised, because she did not expect her colleague to be so angry, doubting even that it was really her, a witch who did not even care about the 100-meter hole dug around her house. At that moment, Zara broke the silence, assuming that her opponent's goal was to defeat herself. Given this fact, the witch offered to arrange a competition. If Naku wins, then she was ready to tell her everything that interested her. But if Zara wins, then they will immediately return Torah. When Nakul was outraged that she did not set the conditions while having a hostage, the girl cut her off, mocking her lack of confidence in her opponent's victory. Naku remembered how confident Zara could be, even despite the curse she was wearing. And then Naku confidently announced that she had no plans to hold back in the fight. The girl is full of confidence in her victory. Immediately after that, she used magic to summon the two-headed serpent dragon Amphispina to attack the enemy. It was an S-class monster, born from the blood of the jellyfish itself, from whose poisonous fangs it was impossible to get out. But Zara knitted a cute butterfly bow from this monster, to everyone's surprise. Declaring that this was just the beginning, Naku summoned another two-headed monster, the demonic dog Orthus. But as soon as he ran up to his opponent, obediently gave a paw on command, and was dressed in a bow made of a snake. When Gilsh himself opposed the girl, he abruptly rushed towards her, intending to take her by surprise. But she pushed him far to the side with a light movement of her hand, which caused the indignation of her opponent. After all this, Zara sat on the defeated Gilsh and invited her colleague to surrender, because Naku could just return the Torah to her and they could play later. But Nakul did not want to be looked down on, and declaring that she could still fight, she began to activate huge magic circles, accompanied by crackling and thunderbolts. She summoned the giant of lies and deception Jurion, demanding that he prove himself and defeat the enemies. And while Naku's servant was trying his best to stop her, Zara noticed that such massive magic was too noticeable. At the same moment, the lock of the door from the school began to open next to their fight, startling the sorceress conducting the spell. The girl panicked, remembering that there was a human school nearby. Wasting no time, Zara swiftly picked up her colleague in her arms and jumped up, rushing away from the risk of being seen by a person. When she landed on the roof with Naka in her arms, one of the teachers came out of the building. He did not notice anyone around and scratched his head in bewilderment, because he definitely heard a fight in this place. A little later, on the roof of the school, shadow magic formed in the air, and surrounded by magical sparks, Tooru suddenly appeared. Finding himself in an unfamiliar place, the young man was trying to figure out where he was, while Zara greeted him, at the same time mocking the loser. After a couple of minutes, Nakul accepted her defeat, and while Gilsh was combing her hair, she complained about how unsuccessfully and shamefully she lost, allowing Zara to do with her what she wanted, so also to be saved. She definitely wanted to repay this debt, and was ready for anything, even to boil in a magic cauldron. Zara thought about the situation and said that she didn't care about anything since Tooru returned, but speaking of duty, she came up with something. After that, to everyone's surprise, she decided to tell about Mugura's desire, wanting to send the arrivals far away. Sometime later, the witch sighed heavily, lying on Thor's lap. Now she had the image of a small child, because she was very tired, although she retained a lot of magic compared to the last time. At this moment, the young man anxiously inquired about Zara's motive when she told Nak that she even panicked from despair about his desire, to which she apologized, assuming that his desire should have been a secret. But the guy explained that it was in the interests of the witch to keep this secret, which she still told, which is why he was thinking about what the girl lying on top of him was up to. Zara looked at the hero thoughtfully without taking her eyes off him. There was complete thoughtfulness on her face. Zara then explained that she couldn't use magic as freely as she used to, and suggested that it would be nice if other magicians and witches could help her. In response to this, Tooru said that the two had recently been defeated. Zara would not help them the same way Rindo did, which she agreed to. While Mugura was completely confused, the girl said that they would wait a little, because Nakul and his servant probably already had to come up with at least some kind of plan of action. Sometime later, within the walls of the school, a girl joyfully approached Tsumugi. She was none other than Naku, who, accompanied by Gilsh, forced Haranaga to go home together after school. Everyone was surprised by her appearance except Zara. Tsumugi immediately remembered the exchange student Naku Kurato, under whose identity Nakul, happy to be remembered, entered the school. Rindo noticed that it was Nakul, a witch who belongs to the Magic Bureau, and was surprised why she was at school. At this time, Naku was thinking about her plan, which could not be bad because they had developed it themselves. According to this plan, in order to prevent Mugura's wish from being fulfilled, she needed to prevent Tsumugi from falling in love with Tora, and therefore needed someone else to fall in love with. Thus, she accepted the challenge of a colleague, planning to take the hero's girlfriend away and tie her in love with some other person. Zara did not think that Naku would come up with such a plan, to which Rindo was greatly outraged that, thanks to her, the number of troubles had once again increased. But the witch explained that it was necessary in order to learn more about Haranaga. She also understood that in order to set Tsumugi up with someone, Naka needed to get to know her better, and it would be nice if she would move the whole process. Tooru suggested that this was why Zara provoked her colleague, but the girl clarified that she did not expect such great enthusiasm from her because she was too reckless. The witch also decided that it would be nice if Naku found out about a photo similar to Tsumugi found in a recent incident, but she understood that there could be complications with this. At that moment, a schoolboy burst in, shouting about the bad news, and he was shouting about it quite loudly. According to him, Haranaga was abducted, and at that moment she was being taken away from the school grounds. Tooru was immediately more shocked than everyone around him, who were also quite surprised. At that moment, a crowd gathered not far from the guys, who were discussing a well-known guy who appeared on the school grounds. Mugura immediately wanted to go to her rescue in a panic. While Rindo was discussing the situation with Zara, they knew that Naku, who Tsumugi was with, could not use magic on people. At the same time, the boy, who let everyone know about the kidnapping, had questions about why he did not follow them and did not try to do something. The young man knew that the kidnapper was huge and intimidating. Upon hearing this information, Rindo suggested something, and wanting to test his thoughts, he entered into a dialogue with someone who wrote that he could not wait any longer. The man's worst expectations were confirmed. The kidnapper was his boss. Some time ago, in the middle of the schoolyard, Naku found out from Tsumuga about her personal preferences in the ideal guy for a relationship. For example, in his height or abilities, which made the girl remember similar questions from friends earlier. She said without much thought that she would prefer a kind guy, in which Naku determined the existence of meaning. But the witch also clarified that, although the answer was not bad, it lacked specifics, even if the object of adoration was not a person, but some toad, dragon, or something else that did not meet with a response in Harunaga. At that moment, before the girl could respond, a heavy, huge hand landed on her shoulder from behind. He was a huge and tall man. He looked like a rock against the background of a small and fragile Tsumuga. And finally, he found the purpose of his search, Tsumugi, which he told her with a malicious smile. Before the girl could recover, he grabbed her by the hand and led her away in an unknown direction, saying that they would leave for a while Nakul helplessly watched them. She ordered Gilshu to return Harunaga. The young man was already about to carry out the order given to him by the hostess. But he suddenly felt something, and when he turned around, he noticed that someone was standing behind the witch. The unknown man magically wrapped sharp strings around the girl's body and explained that if she moved even a couple of millimeters, he would use them without hesitation. While Nakul was shaking, he said that the strings would disappear in 5 minutes and moved away from the scene. Sometime later, Zara and the others found them, and the witch could not help but note that such an outcome was a disgrace for her colleague, but she only referred to concern about all sorts of little things. Thinking about Garm, Zara mentioned his stubbornness when it came to important things, and couldn't help but point out that his plan was pretty good. But Tooru reminded them that they didn't have time. Rindo replied that if they wanted to save Harunaga, then they should have stopped throwing words around, because his boss was ruthless towards women. Mentioning Rindo's boss, the witch assumed that he knew where he went, but the magician refused to say because he did not know this, and if he did, he would never have said because he was not a traitor. At that moment, Tooru lost his patience and rushed to look for his girlfriend, which everyone was very surprised at. Rindo shouted after him that he would not defeat his boss alone. Realizing that nothing else could be done, Zara suggested going to look, assuming that if the opponents had taken Tsumugi with them, they could not have gone far. At the same time, somewhere near the school, Garm said that they had moved far enough away where no one would bother them now. The man had a couple of questions. In response, the girl bowed and apologized for not being able to go on a date with him, interrupting the magician's ardor. He was stunned and did not understand what she was talking about. In response, Tsumugi said that she assumed that his question was that he wanted to confess, and Garm was surprised when he even managed to confess. The girl, in response to his surprise, explained that she decided so because he had previously told her to go with him. But in fact, the man did not mean anything like that, and she misunderstood everything. Comparing himself with Zara, he announced that he was not interested in love adventures even by a millimeter, and the girl was surprised that he knew her friend. Harunaga also explained that the situation she found herself in was very similar to that of someone from another school, which she expected from Garm, but apologized for the mistake and asked about his question. Suppressing his indignation, the man remembered why he had started all this at all, and began talking about a copy of the photo, wanting to know if the girl remembered something about it. But suddenly, a rumble was heard from the side which interrupted the man. He looked away in disbelief, looking for the source of the sound. A cat came up to them, and then a couple more, which already began to scare Garm, while Tsumugi admired the cute cats. A couple of seconds later, they were surrounded by a huge number of meowing cats. Because of this, the man was scared, and picking up the girl, he rushed to run from the cats chasing him. These animals were Naku's familiar, who finally found Garm and asked him to calmly leave Tsumugi, and then kneel down and kiss the ground. At that moment, Harunaga said with interest whether all these cats could belong to Kurado, to which Garm shouted at her not to say all her thoughts out loud. After that, the girl decided to ask why they were running away at all, which the man impatiently explained by kidnapping. He shouted that he could not lose, because he had already taken a great risk after meeting Tsumugi. When Harunaga tried to clarify this, because she did not understand what he meant, Garm said that Zara wanted to know some information that she did not have, and that it would be difficult if the schoolgirl knew this information. It was because the witch didn't tell him anything that the man came by himself. At that moment, Zara overtook them. The girl was very unhappy with the man's behavior and shamed him. She also notes how noisy Garm was. She added that she also needed to learn a lot of things. But Tsumugi was primarily a friend of Tooru, which complicated things. Noticing the escalation of the conflict, Harunaga urged them to do without a fight, to which the man immediately asked her to remain silent. The next thing Garm did was to jerk towards the witch, while he said that since the fight was going to happen, he had the advantage. At that moment, Zara, in response to the enemy's call to prepare for an attack, used some magic with a flick of her finger. Because of this action, a stone fell under the man's feet, causing him to stumble and fall with a crash. The easily defeated Garm couldn't help but curse at what had happened, while his opponent pretended that it all happened by accident without her fault, and then worried about Tsumuga's condition. But the schoolgirl was no longer in the place where she had recently stood, only a shoe remained there. There was only one shoe lying in the middle of the street. Noticing this, Zara could not understand where Tsumugi had gone and asked Garm about it, but he also did not know anything about it. He explained that he had nothing to do with it, because if he had used teleportation magic on people, it could have been discovered, which the witch found logical. While Zara was trying to figure out where the girl could have gone at all, someone was walking away around the corner not far from them. The unknown people were pleased that they were not found, and one of them said that in addition to Haranaga, they should have taken a second girl. But someone explained to him that their elder would scold them if they did whatever they wanted. Tsumugi was surrounded by a group of guys with malicious intentions, but she immediately recognized them. They were from Akos High School. The girl wanted to know what they needed from her, but the guys thought that she should have understood everything. One of the bullies reminded her that the other day she abruptly refused him and offered to meet with him. That's why he's here now, surrounded by his friends, to ask her again. Tsumugi was surprised to remember that he was the one who confessed to her last time, and reminded her that she had already refused him, not understanding why he came again. This time, the young man grabbed Haranaga's hand and pressed it against the wall with a grin, saying that she might not even think about refusing him again. The girl seemed scared of the situation, but then with her face sparkling with enthusiasm, she was amazed, in her opinion, by the amazing act of the guy. The guy was shocked by this answer. While he was slightly shocked by this reaction, she explained that he had the courage to try again even after being rejected, and he even had so many friends ready to support him. He seemed like a good man to the girl. The guy was perplexed, and turning to his friends, he tried to figure out if she really complimented him in this situation, and the others assumed that she liked him even more, and he only had to push her a little. But Tsumugi immediately interrupted them, not wanting to play to their tune, thus simply taking and expressing her honest opinion. Upon hearing this, the bully got angry and, throwing away her hand, said that the girl could not refuse him. At that moment, before he could do anything else, Tooru jumped out between them, covering Haranaga with himself. His girlfriend was surprised to see him out of breath. Struggling to find his words, trying to catch his breath, he said that he had finally found her. The crowd was unhappy with the hero who appeared out of nowhere, who was trying to figure out what was happening in this place. He only remembered that Graham had kidnapped her. This was the first time she had heard the name of her abductor, and said that she had not yet learned his story, which he had started. At that moment, one of the four guys lost his temper because they were ignored and swore at Muguru, thereby scaring him to tremble. Less than a second later, a strong punch sent him flying into the air, to the general surprise of the couple and the remaining friends of the bully, who also got followed. It was Graham who wondered what had happened, only to discover an incomprehensible situation in which some children were involved. He loudly announced that he was looking for Tsumugi on a very important matter and was ready to greatly harm anyone who stood in his way. Haranaga was surprised. As a result from this situation, while the beaten guys took their comrade in their arms and ran away from the huge man, enraged to the point of growling. After that, the girl looked at the Tora and thanked the confused young man, explaining that she was, in truth, a little scared. That's why Tsumugi was glad that the hero came to her rescue, thereby embarrassing him even more, but also mentioned Garma. The hero and the man were very surprised by this. The man said that he was not going to help her and threw her lost shoe, which the girl was grateful for. But Garm clarified that he took the shoe not because he wanted to, but in order to track it by smell, after which an awkward silence hung over. He hurriedly tried to explain in a panic, almost saying that it was sensory perception magic, and admitted the fact that he smelled it but not because he liked it, completely confusing the impression of himself. At that moment, Zara came up to them, telling Graham to do what he originally wanted and leave as soon as possible, but the man was not happy to see her. He expected that she was in this place to stop him again, but she only asked to be called Sazerashi, assuring him that she did not plan to stop him. With the next action, she lightly waved her hand and handed over photos of Tsumuga, in which she was surprised to recognize herself. She was not the only one surprised when Zara, for clarification, said that Graham had found a notebook of someone from the girl's relatives, but did not know who was its owner, and came to find out about it from her. Zara asked the man in disappointment what he was thinking at all, because he could just show the photo without sniffing Haranaga's shoe with her baby photo in his pocket, greatly annoying him. Meanwhile, Graham didn't understand why the witch was helping him out of nowhere, but she just wanted to repay him for saving a couple. While they were talking, Tsumugi remembered something. She had an old image of memories from her childhood, which hinted to her how long ago this photo was taken. Going back to the past, when Tsumugi was still a small child in the park, the girl looked puzzled somewhere. She was approached to ask what was wrong when she noticed that the child she knew was not where he usually sat and read a book. A certain adult explained to her that this boy was no longer in that place, and most likely would never be again. And then, moving on to another topic, he asked me to take a picture of the girl as a keepsake on such an important day. Sometime later, Harunaga woke up from a sudden rush of memories when someone called her. It was Zara who asked her if she remembered something about the photo when the girl couldn't find the words. Tsumugi said that the photo was taken somewhere in the park many years ago, and also added that she did not remember exactly who exactly took this photo, but she remembered that the camera was quite strange. After that, the girl didn't think for long and awkwardly asked what they planned to do with this photo next. The witch thought about it, and then, after thinking about the question carefully, Zara said that she was no longer of any use at all. But they also never found out who was the owner of this photo, so it was worth leaving it, which Tsumugi agreed with. The witch asked if it would be convenient for Harunaga if they kept him. The girl says that's not the point at all. Then she says that she was thinking about something else entirely. She was sure that this photo was worth throwing away. These words caused some confusion among the others. But after seeing this, Tsumugi asked them to forget about it and hurried home. Zara wanted to accompany her, in case the recent guys would bother her again. But the girl planned to go down the same road and said goodbye to everyone, at the same time thanking them for everything, leaving them puzzled. The witch suggested that the schoolgirl knew quite a lot about photography, but did not want to get it out with a bad action, as suggested by Graham, whom she advised to learn how to communicate with people. Tooru was genuinely worried about his girlfriend, which did not escape Zara's gaze. She blamed Garm for this with her eyes, who did not admit his guilt, explaining that this was why she wanted to save the photo, but now they could look at the dark side of Harunaga's personality. Then she turned to the hero. She explained that, as one could already guess, Tsumugi had some kind of secret that connected her to another world of magic. Looking towards the huge man, she said that they would try to reveal this secret no matter what, but she did not care about this one. And that's why she decided to entrust the choice of further actions into the hands of Thor. The witch added that if he wanted to find out this secret, then they would also look for him. But if not, she was not going to get into it and let Garm and his gang get into it. After a couple of moments, she asked him to give an answer, after which he said that nothing could be done because he would not be able to reveal the girl's secret. Zara clarified whether he was really calling to just take and leave everything as it is, without even trying, forcing the guy to think hard. Garm thought about it. After some time of reflection and silence, Garm shouted at the hero, drawing his attention to himself. He wanted to tell him something. He said that if knowing someone's secret was something bad, then you could just find out about it and pretend you didn't know anything, hitting this simple Tora and Zara combined. The man also added that the young man had to find out as many secrets as possible about the girl he was going to meet, thus finding out all her weaknesses that could be used to discuss the interlocutors. But despite how terrible it sounded, Zara admitted that he was right in some ways, because knowing someone's weakness was always useful. After that, she started arguing with Garm about whether Mugura was a sissy. At this time, the guy was thinking about everything, remembering at the same time the recent look of a friend, and said that he obviously wanted to know her secret. He was kind of curious, but he couldn't see Harunaga in such an awkward way for her, realizing that she was worried about something. Tooru felt that he should not turn a blind eye to this, so he asked Zara and Garm to help him solve the secret of Tsumuga. After that, the witch looked approvingly at the boy, but he, with embarrassment on his face, added that if this secret turned out to be something very personal or embarrassing, he asked to be made to forget about it despite the risks. Zara considered this sincere thought, realizing that he was ready to forget something that might be connected with the world of wizards and turn out to be something useful. The witch's silence worried Thora for a while, but the girl said it didn't matter. At that moment, Nakul and Gilsh came up to them from the other side, who had heard the whole conversation and knew that they were looking for something related to the magic of El. Garm was surprised at how she found out about this magical secret, assuming that one of his subordinates had blabbed everything again. Regarding the magic of El and Tsumugi, Naku said that there was only one place where it could be found out, hinting about it to Zara, who then turned to Thor. She said that she needed to look into the world of wizards for a while, hoping that he would go there with her, but the guy was stunned by this. It's a sunny day, birds are singing, Tooru is sitting on his bed and thinking about something. After his long sigh, Zara came up to him, worried about his condition. She reminded him that they were going to another world that day, but that was the reason for the young man's concern. The witch added that there was nothing to be done about it, because the only way to find out about the photo was to return to the world of wizards. Zara didn't really want to take Mugura with her, but she knew she couldn't use magic without him. Tooru understood that he was a kind of foot charger for the girl, and every time he thought about it, he knew that he would become a burden to her if he could not be useful. After looking at the hero for a short time, the witch assumed that he did not want to go and said that he could stay, but Tooru himself was against it. The hero did not go back on his words, and among other things, he understood that if he gave up everything at that moment, he would definitely regret it. But anyway, he was still very nervous, because going to the world of wizards would probably be harder than going abroad, to which Zara shared that the other world was not as big as it might seem. But Tooru was referring to the place where they first met Garm and his gang, which the witch could not agree with. At that moment, they were interrupted by the doorbell. It was Nakul and Gilsh. Together with Rindo, they came for Zara, who noted that they were just in time and told the hero to get ready. She added that he could go easy, hinting that by past words she did not mean something of this kind, but taking the young man's face in her hands, she said that she needed to be ready. The girl kissed the boy. And then, with a little laugh, she threw him on the bed, greatly embarrassing him. And when he started talking about the doorbell, she decided that those people would wait. She leaned even closer to his face and assumed that the guy did not want to kiss right in front of the people waiting for them. The guy was blushing more and more. The witch squeezed their fingers together, to which, extremely flushed with embarrassment, the young man immediately turned his attention. While this was happening, Tooru reflected that for Zara, this kiss was just a means to restore magical power. Sometime later, the door opened in front of Naku and the others, and Zara thanked them for waiting, but her colleague couldn't help but complain about how long they had been waiting for them. Zara appeared in front of them in a more adult form, which was especially noted by Nakul. The witch didn't want to look like a child once she returned to the world of sorcerers, but Naku scoffed at her ability to maintain this form. Noticing the male magician, Zara asked him why he was with them, because no one invited him, to which he awkwardly replied that the more people the better for you. The witch immediately realized that it was his boss Garm who told him to follow them, but decided that as long as he did not become a burden to them, he could join. After that, the girl told Naka to use the teleport to the magic bureau as soon as possible, but she was unhappy with the way she began to command, so she made them wait. Nakul added that she helped them because she wanted to gather information about Tsumugi herself, but she wasn't going to follow the witch's orders or anything. Zara only calmly agreed with this and thanked her for her efforts, thanks to which she could keep her shape. Briefly taken aback by gratitude, Naku was glad that Zara herself thanked her from the bottom of her heart, and Rindo, watching from the side, could only be surprised at how easily the witch managed to calm her colleague. Immediately after that, Nakul activated magic with her staff, concentrating the shining particles at one point. Around the audience, the magic circle was more delighted, which bestowed radiance on everyone standing within its boundaries. And then, with a blinding flash of light, they were successfully teleported. Tooru opened his eyes when he noticed exactly where he was. The room was filled with different inhabitants of the magical world, who both walked and flew and communicated with each other. Mugura was surprised by what the magic bureau was like, and how many witches and wizards were around. The next thing he noticed was his appearance, or rather new clothes, and he did not remember when he managed to put them on, but he was delighted with his new look. Zara explained that it was a disguise just in case other witches or wizards noticed him, even with his ability to hide, which the young man was grateful for. Tooru noted that the world around him was very unusual. Both people and objects were flying, but the witch asked him not to look back and not to leave her, because in some places it was dangerous. As an example, she cited a room nearby from which loud noises could be heard. Illegally bred monsters were kept there, which were extremely dangerous. Pointing to another place, Zara said that it was cursed. The ghost of one of the past members of the staff appeared there. Naku interrupted their conversation, reminding them that they needed to hurry up and find out more about the photo. Zara suggested first going into the Hall of Magical Relics and asking the keeper to look at the photo, because according to her assumptions, it was unusual. When Mugura asked her why she thought that and what she meant, a woman suddenly screamed. Zara was hugged by two witches by the shoulders. One of them thought that she would come that day, and the second impatiently urged her to go, hinting that something had almost begun. The two girls promptly and in a hurry grabbed and dragged the witch away, also reminding that it was worth hurrying and Nakul, while Tooru helplessly watched this. Naku remembered that it was the day of the sanctuary at that moment, and encouraged Gilsh to go there when they were asked about this event by Rindo. The witch explained that this was a secret event that was held twice a year, and during this monstrous event, many were injured. The guys couldn't understand why it was held so often at all. But Nakul added that for Zara in the past, this event was a trifle, and in the present, in the girl's opinion, she should thank the gods if she could get out of there alive. Then Tooru was stunned. The group gathered at a huge gate with a magic circle inscribed on it in the center. The entrance surprised Tooru, who had no idea that purgatory was in such a place, and Rindo assumed that Zara had been taken to this place, which Naku confirmed. The man also clarified what exactly the witches were doing in this purgatory, remembering that they were injured there. In response, Naku invited him to see for himself if he was not afraid and did not want to wait for the end at the entrance. The witch herself was going to take part in any case and entered the space, expecting that at least this time she would see Zara's shameful failure, but Tooru did not have time to stop her. Rindo didn't know what they should do in such a situation. He had absolutely no assumptions. And in the end he said that they had to go after Zara, but he knew that he would be seen as a white crow. But Tooru was going to go, knowing the witch's problem with magic. Rindo looked at the hero and gathering his strength said that since it happened, despite the dangers, everything would be fine with Mugura if he could stay away. The guys entered the magical space, which Thor was unaccustomed to. But immediately at the entrance, an unknown monster stood in front of him, in front of which lay the bodies of several wizards. At first, the monster did not notice the hero, because of his ability to be completely invisible, and began to walk away. But after a moment, his eye was fixed on the young man, greatly scaring him. Upon seeing the boy, the monster attacked him with its mouth wide open, but before he could do anything, a magic spell flew into him. It was Zara who came to the rescue of the guys, happy that the young man had come. Mugura couldn't figure out what kind of world he was in at all, to which the witch explained to him that it was a venue for purgatory. But the guy regarded the chaos reigning around as something scarier than even hell. The young man still did not understand why this event was held twice a year, and what Zara herself was doing here in general. Despite Rindo's assumptions, the witch explained that the wizards wanted to experience this dungeon and its boss. She also added that an employee of the department who has reached the end in this space will receive a double bonus to his salary, thus making it clear that everyone participated in this for the sake of money. The others also said that this was done to increase magical powers, as well as for the sake of a reward for each demonic beast, which is why everyone was so desperate and went hunting, despite the rapid decline in participants. But the girl assured that there was no need to worry about their lives. All the losers went to a separate room with a handkerchief as a consolation prize, and the animals were made using magic. Zara also added, defeating another enemy, that the event was held on a voluntary basis, and the participants themselves were ready to be absorbed. Then Tooru asked if there was a need to force her to participate in this event, but the witch said that her friends had asked her to do so. And among other things, she wanted to get the money herself, to which Mugura could not find how to answer. But Zara added that she would not bow out from her original goal. At that moment, a loud sound was heard not far from them. It was Enra from the Department of Magic Tools Management, who had already managed to win the most victories that day, defeated another enemy. Speaking about this girl, the witch said that the storage of magical relics was under the jurisdiction of their Department of Magical Tools. The employees of this department came to this space every time to test the invented magic tools, as well as the excavated relics. Thus, now was the perfect time to approach Enra and talk to her before it was too late, which was exactly what Zara was going to do, because she never ignored her initial tasks. At this moment, the Purgatory Battle commentator loudly said that Zara from the Magical Crimes Unit had been quiet lately, and suggested that it was because of the vacation she had taken. The spectators at the fights from the same department complained that the witch was cooling off, and demanded to try harder because their bonus was at stake, which made her angry because of their pomposity. At that moment, she talked about how everything around her annoyed her, and wanted to finish after she had already defeated a couple of demonic monsters. But she was interrupted by a girl who came up from behind. Enra, provoking a battle, attacked Zara, telling her that the magic tool had exceeded any expectations this time, declaring that her opponent could be proud even of losing. But the witch disagreed. If she lost to someone like her, her pride would be severely hurt. At this time, Tooru aside did not understand why they were doing this, because the purpose of the event was to defeat demonic monsters. But Rindo explained to him that victory was for the one who would reach the end, which gave the will to fight. Zara told Rindo to take Muguru away and hide somewhere in a corner, which he did not argue with at all. The young man was also worried that the witch would not be able to use magic, but the man who retreated with him explained that if she felt danger, she could retreat. Continuing to walk away from the battle, Tooru looked at the back of the fighting girl, worried about her battle, when he accidentally stepped on some kind of entity. He felt guilty and tried to apologize to the unknown creature as he gradually recovered from the blow. Immediately after that, the monster suddenly rushed to attack the boy, scaring him to tears. Seeing this out of the corner of her eye, Zara turned away from the enemy and rushed to the hero's rescue, and cut the monster with a light movement of the magic wand. While the young man remained stunned, Enra told her opponent that he should not have turned his back on the opponent so easily, not understanding what she was distracted by. But at that moment, Nakul appeared behind her, who said that the one who turned his back on the enemy was herself. Magical shadows wrapped around Inra's body, and tying her hands, Gilsh threw the girl to the floor. After that, Naku mocked the defeated opponent, believing that she was only thinking about Zara as an opponent, and also added that despite a good magic tool, its user had a long way to go. At this moment, the audience rejoiced at the victory, believing that Zara's movements were actually a decoy in Naku's strategy, also praising the two witches. But Nakul knew that it was too early for joy, because among other things, only the two of them remained, hoping that they would arrange a duel to decide who would win once and for all. But Zara had a different opinion. She was sure that the battle was over, because the witches were in the same department, and they would have received a bonus anyway, so there was little point in the fight. While Naku was trying to come to her senses, a wizard approached them, praising the strength of the employees of the department for combating magical crimes. She patted Inra on the shoulder and praised her for her work, saying that they would listen to them next time to use them as a guideline for inventing a new magical tool, which Zara did not mind. But the witch could not wait for the next time, so they needed to talk at this very moment, addressing this to the interlocutor, the head of the Department of Larage. With this suggestion, Zara aroused the interest of the head of the Magic Tools Management Department, while Inra stood sulking over her loss. Sometime after the Purgatory Day events, the wizards strolled around happy that everything was finally over. At this time, Rindo and Toru were leaning against the wall nearby, sighing in disappointment. The man asked why he was so sullen even though they finally got out of this stupid event. The young man was glad of this, but it was something else. He went there with them hoping that he would help Zara if she got into trouble. But in the end, remembering past events, he did not help in any way, so he also became a burden to her as usual. At that moment, the witch herself appeared out of nowhere, scaring both guys, and not understanding why the hero was worried, told him not to get depressed, because she did not count on the help of a hamster like him. Zara moved on to more important things. When Larage approached them, she introduced herself from which department she was from, and greeting them, added that she was the head of her department when she was surprised to meet a man soon. She tried to find the guy standing nearby with her eyes, but she didn't succeed until she literally bumped into him. Finally seeing the hero, she touched his face and hurriedly apologized for not noticing him at all, commenting that she did not expect to meet a man in the world of wizards. Squeezing her fingers in the palm of the young man, Larage said that she had already seen people a couple of times in their world, but could not come into contact with them, which is why she wanted to hear about them the other day. At that moment, Zara laid siege to her with a light blow to the head, saving the embarrassed Tora from the obsessive witch when she wanted to take some blood from the boy right in this place. And at this moment, Zara apologized to the head of the Magic Tools Management Department for this, but said that she had something to discuss with Mugura, asking the interlocutor to wait for a while. Thinking about it, the guy sighed awkwardly, assuming that it was a kiss, and was embarrassed because they had to move away and ask the others to wait. But Toru understood that this was exactly what he was needed for in this world, knowing that it was time to get used to it. The couple entered one of the aisles nearby when the witch asked Muguru if he had told the others about their curse situation. Toru believed that they already knew about the witch's curse, and she herself said that it would be difficult to overlook and explain the whole situation. And regarding the Department of Management of Magical Tools, Zara said that she often turned a blind eye to their violations, which made her doubt that they would spread rumors about her. After thinking a little, the girl turned to Thor, who was greatly surprised by this. He did not expect that he would be addressed. Because of this, he thought that this was the very moment of the kiss, and tried to reassure himself that he had done this many times before. Zara turned around wanting to say something about wizards, when she saw the guy, embarrassed, close his eyes and shrink, waiting for a kiss. She was surprised and apologized, explaining that she had not originally called him here for this at all, and apologizing again, said that she understood his thoughts, which made the boy want to sink into the ground out of shame. But there was something more important that Zara hadn't told him about before. She said that in the world of wizards, not everyone warmly welcomed people. Most in any case looked down on people, or as about some little thing like a guinea pig and worse. By doing this, the girl wanted to say that there were quite a lot of dangerous people in this place, and she wanted the guy not to lose his vigilance. But the witch realized that it was worth saying this before they entered another world, and reminded the young man that if he got scared, he could come back, which he did not agree with. He knew from the very beginning that this place was dangerous. And looking down a little, Toru began to talk about how he was interfering with Zara when she interrupted him, saying that she had never even worried about something like this. She added that she had brought him with her to help restore magic, and he did not need to throw all his strength into saving the witch, and also that the hero could not worry that she would not help him. Zara gave priority to fulfilling Mugura's wishes, and he could stay in this world until they solved the mystery of photography or give up this venture and return if he was afraid. The girl asked the young man not to worry about her and to decide his fate himself, hoping that he understood her. While Toro agreed, she looked at him and thought a little, so they looked at each other for a relatively long time. After that, the witch noted that a genius like him, always belittling himself, thought about helping her, and asked why he became overconfident, to which the guy hastily apologized. But Zara said that it was a compliment and gently kissed him on the cheek, greatly embarrassing the guy, who recalled that she had previously said that they had not gone away for a kiss, but she only decided to do it since they were there after all. Wondering if the young man had changed his mind, she asked if she should have stopped, but the hero, red with embarrassment, said that he was fine. After a while, Lerage and Nakul and the others were waiting for them outside, to whom Zara apologized for making them wait while a blushing Mugura trailed behind. Rindo whispered to him about how much the guy had thought about after what happened, and assumed that things had moved on, but Toru, not understanding what he meant, said that they just talked. The head of the Department of Management of Magical Tools, whistling, realized that they were kissing to restore magic and wanted to see it. But Zara cut her off, saying that regardless of status, she was ready to hit for such jokes. A little later, they moved to the Magic Bureau of the department in which Leraj was the head, where they looked at that very photo. The head found out that the photo was definitely not ordinary, and that it was made with the help of amnesia, which surprised everyone present except Zara, who had already assumed such an outcome. When Toro clarified what this amnesia was, the witch explained to him that it was the name of a magical tool, and the photo taken from it fixed a person's memory and erased the captured moment from memory. In other words, this photo was sent by a wizard or witch who came into contact with Tsumugi many years ago. While Mugura was surprised by this turn of events, Zara added that this unknown made Harunaga forget about something, wondering what it all meant. Sometime later, in the Department of Management of Magical Tools, Leraj found information about amnesia and said that it was a dangerous C-class tool, and some records and documents were needed to use it. But they could easily and quickly find out the identity of the person who took the photo. At that moment, suddenly a book with a photo in the hands of the head of the department flashed with magic, hitting her and scaring the others in the room. Leraj pretended that this blow was fatal, which Inrad decided to play along with, while Toru and the others did not understand what had happened. Nakul assumed it was a magical trap. Then she suggested that the photo itself, like the book, had been destroyed and it was impossible to read anything, but it could be restored. Zara, holding a piece of burnt photo in her hands, said that it was the destruction of evidence. Nakul reacted particularly sharply to this, not understanding why it was necessary to do this with a photo of a little girl, the answer to which her colleague could not know, but assumed that something still happened. She also added that this item had a dubious history, as did the object from the vault. She shared the notebook from which the photo was taken when Leraj said they would be able to find out everything. This notebook was left by someone from the staff, but the head of the department immediately found out who was its user. Namely, it contains the memory of the user of Magic L. Saying these words, the girl was smiling contentedly. Everyone present was surprised by this, including Rindo, who asked if this user and magic itself existed. In response, Lerage only said that the magic of L existed once upon a time. The man asked her if she knew how to use it, but only found out that she did not know, and she wanted to know something, but it was impossible. According to her, in fact, no one could control the magic of L. It took the guys a while to figure that out. Then the head of the department, remembering that there was a man among the wizards, decided to explain to him everything about this unknown magic. This type of magic did not belong to any particular type of magic. Experts said that it was called that because it was not used by anyone. According to the old records, Magic L could summon tons of monsters or wipe the country off the face of the earth, but the energy cost was huge, and the formula of the magic circle was absurd, as one of the things that magicians could not use. This phantom magic should have existed based on old records, but they didn't know how they could use it. With this, Lerage finished her story. At that moment, Zara whispered to Rindo that she doubted the existence of something like this, and that she did not believe the notebook, and also believed that some theory written by an enthusiastic magician was more suitable here. But the sorcerer did not let up, and was sure that if there were memos from the user of this magic, then magic itself existed. The girl says that this is not quite true. Lerage sharply disappointed him, explaining that this type of magic was inherited in the clan, so after the clan ceased to exist, magic also died, which sometimes happened. So the memo was from someone who had long since left the world, as was his magic. Rindo was shocked and disappointed to regret the efforts he had spent over the past few months. Zara noted that she wasn't worried about Rindo's errands, but then she was interested in reminding them about the owner of this notebook, because that's how they could find the owner of the photo itself. Larage said that this memo belonged to someone from the Labolas family, left 10 years ago, which none of those present could believe. Even Zara was stunned for a while Naku was even scared when Tooru asked about this very family, to which the witch replied that they were not famous. She added that they just found out about them by accident, asking to confirm the complaint, which left only silence. Rindo, in response to Toru's question about whether he knew about the Labolas, said that he did not know them, but had heard about the magic they possessed. Speaking of this very magic, everyone stared sharply at Muguru, making him tremble, because he did not understand what they were talking about, looking at him with such faces. He started to blame himself until the others dared to say something, being stunned. Tears came to the guy's eyes, but noticing this, Zara sighed and hugged Thora, hugging her to herself. Holding the boy in her arms, she apologized. She was very sorry for the hero, she did not want him to cry. She says that they were also surprised, and added that the young man had nothing to fear, as they would not allow something frightening to happen. After a while, Tooru rubbed his eyes and said he was fine, he didn't want to look like a little kid. When Zara asked Rindo not to create such an atmosphere, because the hero was not used to such a gaze, even at normal times. At that moment, Larage said that the magic of the Labolas family allowed people to turn invisible. Upon hearing this, everyone was once again stunned to the point of trembling when the head of the department added that as an extremely inconspicuous person, Tooru could have been bewitched by Labola's magic, which made him turn pale, not believing it. The young man stood in the middle of the room surrounded by magicians and witches, still not believing what he had heard. He clarified that the man of the Labolas family was the owner of the photo from Sumuga, died 10 years ago and could use magic, which makes others invisible. Summing up these results, he was in a panic, not understanding what the others wanted to say, assuming that whoever took Haranaga's photo also did something that made him so inconspicuous, but they couldn't be sure. Anyway, Zara believed that Toru's invisibility was an abnormal phenomenon, but the fact that the owner of the notebook was a relative of Tsumuga and possessed invisibility, magic suggested that such an outcome of events was possible. Mugura swallowed because of what he heard when Zara hinted that they themselves wanted to ask him about it, and Rindo rarely asked the hero about when he had lived with such supernatural invisibility. Adding on her own, Zara also asked about when it happened that Tooru became so weak and equated to zero, but he knew that his weakness had absolutely nothing to do with this question. Mugura said that he had become so inconspicuous as a child for a long time, but that was more than 10 years ago, which made his memories vague. An image of old memories suddenly appeared before his eyes, causing the guy to grab his head. Zara asked about what was wrong with him. He also felt that he had often bumped into passersby and got injured before, which, in Rindo's opinion, was not like evidence of how he was bewitched. Zara asked about other more precise details, citing the example of a certain suspiciously old man. Nakul at this time said that they would not be able to make the guy remember anything despite all efforts, because if the owner could erase Tsumuga's memories, then he could do it with Tooru. The hero could not believe that his memories had also been changed. He wondered if he was really an invisible man, and also if it was related to magic. Mugura remembered all the difficulties he went through being invisible, then he thought it was his wine and gave up, but now he wanted it all to turn out to be something else. He said that he came to this place to solve the mystery behind Tsumuga's childhood photo, and did not understand how everything turned out the way it turned out. The witch stared at Thora in silence, thinking. Then Zara, who after a little thought, announced that there were two ways to approach the answer. The first way was to bring back Tsumuga's sealed memories, and they could do it with the photo itself and the person depicted on it, which was a quick option. But since they didn't know what the memories were, they didn't know how they would affect Haranaga herself after their return. Thus, even Thor did not like this option, which is why they could try another way. They could ask Labolas himself. Saying this with the most serious look, the witch surprised everyone in the room when Tooru asked how it should have been understood, because they knew that this man had long since passed away. Mugura suggested that there was magic that brought back to life, but Rindo told him that magic was not some kind of game to make it possible. Zara in turn added that there was such a type of magic, namely ghost magic. She turned mortal creatures into undead or familiars, so the bodies were almost like living ones. But Nakul, who specialized in this kind of magic, explained that the undead were just dolls, and had no memories from a previous life, so it wasn't even worth talking about. But her colleague added that the memories should have remained if the head had survived, especially the undead Naku, who could to some extent think for herself. And I asked for an opinion on this issue from Gilsh, who, among other things, bore the surname Labolas. The familiar, like the others, were surprised by this statement. Especially Naku, who was already sweating with excitement, was stunned. Zara added that 10 years ago there was an accidental suspicious death of one of the members of the Magic Bureau. When it came to this case, Tooru remembered the witch's story about the corridor where, after the death, the ghost of a member of staff appeared under strange circumstances. The girl continued, telling that this employee turned out to be Gilsh, and Nakul, after finding his body, resurrected and turned into a familiar, which caused her a lot of trouble. Zara's colleague flared up. Then she remembered how she and Gilsh had walked and enjoyed life in the past. But at some point, she was horrified to find his body in the middle of the corridor. Naku explained that she couldn't close her eyes and leave everything as it was. She couldn't let him end up like this, because she didn't let him die without even knowing why. Thus, Zara said that in other words, her colleague was not sure about the death of Gilsh and did not know how he left this world, which she agreed with. And the witch continued, saying that if Gilsh could remember everything that happened 10 years ago, then they would not only be able to find out about Tsumuga and Tooru, but also find out what personality was behind Labola's departure to another world. This way, they could solve 3 cases at once, and suggested that Naka use her familiar to tell stories from the past, but she was not sure of her ability to make the undead remember anything. Then Zara grabbed the man by the shoulders with both hands and announced that no matter how, she would definitely find a way to remind him of what he had done in those days. But with these words, she only scared a colleague in the department, who was worried about whether her method would harm the body of Gilsh himself, until Tooru noticed Zara's extreme motivation. The hero also understood that she would not have cared at all about what was happening, and all these secrets if he had not said that he wanted to know about it all and about the secret of Tsumuga. The guy would never have thought that he would ever be involved in all this, but if Zara tried her best for him, then he wants to show his dedication too. Namely, he was also ready to find out the truth, whatever it turned out to be. He wanted to do this in gratitude to the witch.